when they got you to sit down and do the caricature, how anxious were you?
I was more nervous on my first day when I got hired drawing caricatures at SeaWorld, but it was funny. I was sitting there, the first customers, and I started drawing them. So, how long you been doing this? Oh, it's my first day. And they just look at each other. And they're just like, they got up and left. And then my boss came over and he said, what happened? What going on? I said, well, I was drawing them and I told them it was my first day and they got up and left. And there's all, Stephen, from now on, every time someone sits in front of you and they ask you that question, tell them you've been doing it for 2 years.
Hey guys, I am super excited to share a conversation with one of the most influential artists in the caricature and character design world, Steven Silver. Steven has worked on shows you probably grew up watching, from Kim Possible to Danny Phantom. He's also an incredible caricature artist, author, and teacher who's inspired thousands of artists, myself included. In this podcast, we dive into Steven's early caricature career and the experiences and lessons that still shape his approach today. So grab your sketchbooks and get ready for this ToonCast with Steven Silver. It's such a pleasure to have you on here because we've met at ISCA a couple of times. We never really sat down and got to have a full discussion. It was just kind of passing by. So I'm really appreciative that you get to sit down with me today. It's really important to me to get to know you a little bit better. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
So right off the bat, would love to go through your experience doing live caricature, just kind of your story of how you got started, and would love to hear that.
Yeah, right on. I can tend to sort of ramble and get long-winded, so I'm going to feel free to just kind of chime in at any point. But just kind of giving you the sort of short of it in a realm was I first started by doing, originally I first found a sketchbook in my backyard when I was 6 years old, and it had portraits and landscapes in it. And that made me want to become an artist in the beginning. And then we ended up, when I was 10 years old, moved to America and always was like fascinated with Walt Disney. The first thing that my parents took us to was Disneyland when we came to America from England, and just all of a sudden realized, oh my God, more cartoons. And that became an inspiration. And then what happened was in high school, I was working for my high school newspaper, got that opportunity. And that's where I really discovered caricature, because I had to be a political cartoonist for it wasn't political cartoonist. It was like talking about things like that. But I'm like, oh, that's what a cartoonist for a newspaper does. They got to just capture moments and do caricatures. And so I started looking at a lot of different political cartoonists in the newspapers who were doing caricatures. And there was this great artist that I discovered, and his name was Conrad. And he really kind of made the mold for what caricatures should be. And at that time, a lot of other caricature artists in the newspapers were following his lead. They were just like, oh, that's how you caricature Reagan. That's how you caricature, Bill Clinton. And there was just a fascination, and it was very simple. And I like that. And then when I was in high school too, I discovered, while I was in my screen printing class, I discovered Mad Magazine. And the very first caricature that I saw that I copied, which blew my mind away, was the caricature that Mort Drucker did of Arnold Schwarzenegger from The Predator. And I was just like blown away by that. And then that got me into Jack Davis and all this other stuff. And during that time also, when I was a little younger, bringing it back a bit, I discovered Norman Rockwell. And Norman Rockwell, I saw him add a sense of caricature. I didn't know what it meant at the time, but I knew that it was just different, and that was very inspiring. And so with all that said, I was kind of doing the caricatures. I was making fun of my friends in high school, drawing them. I was drawing in everyone's yearbook. And then it came time to go to college. And my parents said, you got to go to college. If you want to do anything with your life, you got to do what your brothers and everyone, that was the thing. Go to college or you're never going to make it in this life. And academically, I just couldn't handle it. It was brutal, for me, just academically. And luckily for me, I have a twin brother, and I was copying off him my whole time. through high school, getting me through that. And then as a high school trip, as a high school sort of present gift, my parents said, hey, we're going to go to Vegas. So they took my brother and I to this brand new hotel, which is called the Excalibur Hotel. Many of your viewers probably know of it, out in Vegas. It was brand new. But when I was there, I discovered people drawing caricatures live. And I had met someone, I never met him, but at the Del Mar Fair when I was younger, I saw a caricature artist drawing there and was just like, whoa, what is this? This guy's like got a line of people and is just drawing people. So the seeds were kind of being planted. It was almost, I was always guided. I always felt like I was being led, and always have felt like I've been led in my life to different places at different times. And all of a sudden it was like, Stephen, here's the sketchbook in the backyard. Do that. Stephen, here's, an opportunity in high school to do this. Stephen, here's a caricature artist I want you to see in, Del Mar Fair. And then Stephen, here's a caricature artist at the Excalibur Hotel, where I met Steve Fossen, who was actually at that time drawing caricatures. He was there with like 4 other caricature artists drawing the whole time. And I just was mesmerized and just couldn't get away. And the whole time I was there, my parents didn't even see me. I'd show up to the room. Where were you, Stephen? You've been gone all day. It's just like, man, I saw these guys drawing caricatures. And somehow, again, I don't know how I did it, but I convinced Steve Fossen to sell me his manual. And he said, I don't sell this or give this to anyone outside of people who work for me. And he ended up selling it to me for $7. He charged me $7. I think it was the cost of what it cost to make it. When I think about it, it's like, this cost me $7 to make it. Yeah, give me $7. And, it's almost just like, if you're serious, this is going to be a money transaction, and you're going to show me how serious you are by pulling out $7 out of your pocket and purchasing this. And I did. And then I met this other guy upstairs. His name was, I think, Steve Thompson or Steve Thomason. I can't remember his name, but again, another phenomenal, he was his main manager, phenomenal artist, and got talking to him. And he was the manager who was hiring people. So Steve was there, but he wasn't responsible for hiring people. He let Steve do all the other guy do the hiring. And then I went back home and started studying all this stuff. And I took, then submitted my work to him. And at that time I was in junior college, because my parents said, you got to go to junior college. Miserable time drawing on everything, but I was in a life drawing class, and what happened was I met a guy there who said, hey, they're looking for caricature artists at SeaWorld in San Diego. And so I ended up calling those guys up. I was always took initiative, coming from England to America. My parents always told us and ingrained in us, it's the land of opportunity. And so there was that real belief system, and I watched them work really hard. So I was always a go-getter. I always took initiative. My parents always just told me, don't wait for anyone. Always, if you believe in something, if there's something you want to accomplish, if there's something you want to do in this life, go after it and do it, make it happen. And that's what I did. And so I reached out to them, and I showed up, I had a mullet at the time. I had an earring, and for whatever reason, I was wearing just slippers with duct tape around it to a job interview, which is just crazy. And I had a plastic bag with my drawings, not even a proper portfolio, but they were so desperate that they ended up needing someone, and they hired me. And that company was called Mish Cartooning, and Dave Camish, who was him and his brother were running that operation, and they were, and that's what sort of like they made me that offer. And then I had the job offer from Vegas. And so now I was torn between, wow, do I go to Vegas or do I stay in San Diego? But I had to tell my parents at the same time, Mom, Dad, I'm dropping out of college. I just can't do it. And at that point, lovingly, they said, if you think you can make it as an artist, you got to move out of the house. And we'll pay your car insurance and your health insurance because we know you won't. But everything else, you're on your own. And that's what sort of like led me to quit junior college, took up the job with the Mish Cartooning, started doing that, the live caricatures, started doing parties. And then what happened from that point was they were building operations, and they were from Minnesota. So Dave Camish used to work with Richmond for Fossen. They were both young artists working for Steve Fossen, came from the same training. And but I never knew Richmond, but they sent me to Minneapolis to go open up the Mall of America. with Dave. So myself and Dave Camish and another artist opened up the Mall of America in Minnesota. And so I moved to Minnesota. And then during the winter time, when it got slow, I was living around there. I went to the shopping malls, and I went to the shopping malls cruising around. And lo and behold, I saw a caricature artist sitting there drawing caricatures at the shopping mall. I went over. I'm like, who's this guy? He's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
It was Tom Richmond. And I started talking to him. Of course, he knew of Dave Camish and the Mish brothers. They all worked together and all that. And I would just sit and watch Tom Richmond draw, and got talking to him. And at the end of the day, he offered me, hey, I don't want to steal you from those guys, but if you want a job, you can come work at Valley Fair next summer. And that led me to working with Richmond. But that was my long story short story long. That's how I ended up getting into live caricature and doing parties, was from that time. Yeah.
That's awesome. So reversing back, you said that you had a hard time doing, being in school.
Yeah.
I had the same issue. I would skip school purposely. I have like bad anxiety issues, and for some reason I just never wanted to go to school. I would rather get off the school bus, go hide in the woods for 8 hours,
Nice.
and then come back to ride the school bus back home. And nobody would know.
Really?
But I couldn't stand school. I didn't like the I guess I'm not saying the rules, but like you're always confined in a little box, and you got to
Yeah.
focus and kind of be subjected a little
Yeah.
bit. I don't know. I just didn't like that feeling. What about you? What was
Well, for
kind of
me, to be honest with you, it was extremely difficult for me because back then you weren't diagnosed with, oh, you got dyslexia, you got ADD, ADHD, all these ailments that everyone has now,
yeah.
and it's just like, but we didn't talk about it back then. People didn't even know. You weren't given medication. And I have it now that I'm older and you get diagnosed and you go through that. Well, I realize I have ADHD and a form of dyslexia. So it was very hard for me to retain information and study and read. And so I was very slow and I was struggling. So they're moving in school from, hey, we just finished chapter 1, we're moving on to chapter 2. I'm just like, wait, I don't even understand chapter 1 yet. So I was always held back. And it was funny, in England, I moved to America when I was 10 years old. But in England, they always rated you in your classroom 1 to 38. So there were usually about 38, 39 of us that always were going from one grade to the next. You were always with the same class, just moving all the way up the grades. And there were like 38, 39 of us. And my twin brother and I had to share a brain or something, but we were both always number 38 and 39 in the class. We were always the dumbest kids in the class and growing up, and always in trouble and just all this other stuff. So school, academically, I just couldn't retain the information. And it still holds through today. It's very hard for me to retain information. And that's why I think I tried to do art extra hard and pushed even harder and tried to just go and even become a teacher, because I just needed to keep repeating it for it to stick in my head. But yeah, school was just not for me, and I knew it, and that wasn't my purpose in life. I wasn't supposed to be anything else,
Did you have a hard time like concentrating on things that you were actually like, you're actually
Always.
curious about?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, always. I've always had a hard time sort of like really concentrating. It's why I never became an animator, because I just couldn't concentrate, or that, just really focus. I never became, even illustration became extremely hard, because there's things that I wanted to be as an illustrator when I looked at guys like remember Mark Fredrickson?
Yeah.
Do you know that guy? Yeah. He was back in the 90s and 2000. He was doing all these covers and real great airbrushed illustrations. And he was doing all that stuff. And I just couldn't do it. Just my attention span is so short that I'm not going to spend 20 hours on an illustration. I'll go freaking insane.
Yeah.
So that's why live caricature really became this sort of like godsend for me, this thing that I could just do quickly and just move in, move out, be done. And all of a sudden it's just like, holy shit, this is something that I can really connect with. I don't have to focus or concentrate so long on this one thing. So it's absolutely a huge thing for me, which has affected me my whole career. Yeah.
Well, I think it serves you a
It
little bit,
serves me
you
too.
know,
Yeah, absolutely.
because you kind of know what you want. I mean, a
Yes.
lot of people kind of have to navigate and get into it before they actually feel like, oh, this is not what I want to do.
Yeah.
Up front, you're like, I can't even focus on this.
Yeah,
So,
exactly, exactly. It did. It became a great, and that's why even when I talk about dyslexia, ADHD, or any of these other elements, again, sometimes it's a gift and sometimes it's your strength and
yeah.
something that you can really use to help you. It led me to want to draw quick sketches in my sketchbook all the time. So I was filling up sketchbooks of quick observation. So I was always observing. I'd go then when I started taking figure drawing, when I was, I met, I was doing caricatures at the shopping malls. I started when I came back to San Diego. I was started doing shopping malls during the Christmas time, and that led to all these other jobs that I ended up getting for working at No Fear, which was a T-shirt company, because they saw me working doing caricatures. I got a job at Verona Casino, which is a casino in San Diego, because the guy saw me at a shopping mall, and there I ended up meeting Stephen Fishwick. And he introduced me to because I needed an artist, so I ended up hiring him to help me fill in my spot when I couldn't work at the casino.
Yeah.
So I ended up meeting him, and then we became good friends. And then through there, it was just he introduced me to, hey, I'm doing figure drawing in downtown San Diego. You should go. And I met this artist named Jeff Watts in San Diego who was doing these figure drawings, sort of quick sketch, gesturely stuff. And then that's where I really started to develop my skill set and really focus on my art, because
Hmm.
I wasn't really focusing on I was just trying to get good at caricature, but I was
Hmm.
neglecting bodies. I was neglecting drawing hands. I was neglecting all that stuff. And I was neglecting everything, because I was just doing caricatures, and that's what sort of like led me down that road. But yeah, always hard to concentrate for me.
Well, that's another way it serves you too, because if you're doing gesture drawing, you don't need to look at all the information.
Yeah.
It's more about like your impression, instant. Put that on the page as quick as possible. If it
Yes.
fails, analyze it, redo it, tinker with it. So
Yeah.
that, I mean, do you feel that way? Like it could have,
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. It gave me that ability, and caricature, to be honest with you, gave me such a great strength and ability to not only pick up my speed but deal with rejection.
hmm
As we know, right out there, and getting our drawings ripped up or thrown away, or people not paying, and dealing with the pressure. And I
hmm
think that was a great thing too. So there's all these forges, of like the fire, like just like ching boom, going through that lesson, and boom, hammering that thing and forging this being that became this artist, and was able to do it successfully and navigate it through all of this, through those all those different elements, and pressures. But it was an amazing thing. And I tell people today all the time, I say, learn how to do caricature. It's going to serve you in so
hmm
many ways. And, we'll all, again, take our different routes, whatever it's going to be. I used to try to teach people, follow this path, just do this, this, and this, and this, and realize, you guys, you're not me. We all have our own path. We all have our own destiny. We all have our own way and approach to doing stuff. We all have our own little forms of disability, that can help push you in a different direction. Some people have the gift of gab, and that helps along, through there. Some people are just really good with business. Some people are good with, again, just make networking, and some people aren't. So we all got our strengths and weaknesses. But yeah, me doing all these things and putting myself out there so much, knocking on doors. I would show up to bars. Hey, can I draw? I see all these people sitting around, at restaurants. Can I draw your patrons while they're waiting, and convince
hmm
people to let me draw them, their patrons, and convince them to pay me $75 and just let me take tips? I was going to the bars when I was 21 and drawing at nighttime on Fridays and Saturdays and cleaning up, walking out of the bars with $200 to $400 in my pocket of tips. And
hmm
it was just a machine at that point in my early career. I was hungry. I was just 18, 19, 20, 21, and just like this hunger and just trying to prove, in a sense, my parents wrong too, that I could
Yeah.
do this. I can make a living and life as an artist. And it just led to all these things. That persistence, paid off for sure.
Well, persistence is underestimated, in my opinion. Um, it does. You get a lot of lessons from it when you do it, because I don't like being persistent. I get a little bit
No.
anxious, but
Yeah.
you got to kind of ignore that and realize, you're not being annoying. If somebody says, "Hey, quit bothering me," you're gonna respect it.
Sure. Yeah.
But there's like this fear that blocks you. Where it's like, "Hey, don't look like a fool. Hey, don't get in front of them. It's going to make it seem awkward
Yeah.
or kind of, offensive." And that blocks a lot of people from opening opportunities for
Yeah.
themselves, for sure. So when you were at Vegas, when they got you to sit down and do the caricature
Yeah.
there, how, on a scale from like 1 to 10, like how anxious were you when you were doing that?
It's so hard to recall really because it was such a long time ago, but I was very, I do remember being extremely nervous, just like, oh my God, is this like really happening? There was a pressure
Mm-hmm.
there. But there was also, I would say that I've always been confident.
Mm-hmm.
There's always been a confidence within me and in high school, of course, you're like a big fish in a small pond. So
Mm-hmm.
you think you're the and then you get into the real world and realize, oh my God, I suck and I'm nothing. So at
Yeah.
that point,
You get humbled.
18, coming out of high school, I knew I was the best artist I knew. And I
Mm-hmm.
knew I was the best artist in my high school. And, even though my stuff was, but it was a small pond, right? So when I went in there, I did have a confidence and I drew them, and at the end, they were just like, hey, it's not terrible, I mean, it's not great, but it's
Yeah.
not bad. And that's where it sort of led to Steve Fossen believing in me and giving me and selling me that book instead of, and they saw again how long. And again, honestly, we were there for like 2 days or 3 days. I was probably honestly standing behind them at least about 4 hours a day,
Okay.
5 hours a day, just watching them, just
Yeah.
trying to take it all in. But yeah, there was a confidence. So I don't remember. I was more nervous on my first day when I got hired drawing caricatures at SeaWorld. But it was funny. I was sitting there, the first customers, these two guys got on the bench in front of me, and I started drawing them. They're having conversation with me. So, how long you been doing this? Blah blah blah. Oh, it's my first day. And they just look at each other, and they're just like they got up and left. And then my boss came over and he said, "What happened? What going on?" I said, "Well, I was drawing them, and I told them it was my first day, and they got up and left." And there's all Stephen. From now on, every time someone sits in front of you and they ask you that question, tell them you've been doing it for 2 years. So that was my line, all the time. Oh, I've been doing this for 2 years now, and just to build confidence within the client.
Yeah. That's funny. Hey guys, sorry, I know I'm interrupting here, but this is YouTube and you got to say these kinds of things, right? So if you're liking this video, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button that's down below, or go ahead and drop a comment, because each comment helps to serve this channel better. And if you're sketching along while listening, I'd love to see your artwork. So upload it on Instagram and use the hashtag sketchwithToonHeadz, that's sketchwithToonHeadz, so I can check it out. I like seeing artwork. It's fun. All right, back to the episode.
Yeah.
So the first day you were nervous, and then your first drawing you did, you kind of just got rejected?
Yeah. First drawing rejected. First day super nervous. Yeah, terrified. Yeah, the whole
Yeah.
day, and and I was using airbrush for the
Oh,
first time. So we were airbrushing. I mean, when if you've ever used the airbrush and the first time it's like spitting and it clogs and all this
yeah.
shit, and you're just like, what the hell's going on? It's not like there was 2 weeks of training or anything. It's just like we're hiring you and we need you in the chair tomorrow because we need artists to fill these locations. It's just like I had no idea what the hell I was doing. So just I can't even imagine what those first ones must have looked like. A horror show. Would be fascinating to track those things down. Paint splotted all over here, there, like everywhere. I can't imagine.
When you were okay, question, when you were first starting out, were you always had that kind of confidence? Like even when you were at a young age, was that like something that always followed you?
Yeah, I would say that I really did always just have that confidence for sure. Just I think again it was like high school uh, gave me that confidence, and when I first came to America as an English person, I was me and my twin brother were kind of you kind of become popular automatically.
Yeah,
You
that's
become
true.
the cool kids in
Yeah.
school. Like these
The
kids have
accent.
such a cool accent, and
Yeah.
so there was something different. So everyone kind of wanted to be our friend. It was an easy transition, and there was just that confidence there. And then just growing up, just watching my parents, and their work ethic kind of gave me that confidence to do things, and it was always just kind of within me. So it always helped, and I just got better. And there was something very natural for me, which I didn't realize early on. But again, I realize it's my purpose in life now is to be a
Hmm.
teacher. Is
Hmm.
not just to work for people and do it, but to teach people and help people. And I realized that very early on too. That I always felt like I was just helping people, and because I did, I got it very quickly. I was very fast learner with the caricatures. So all of a sudden, there became, in a weird way, I was put up on this pedestal very fast in the caricature world at SeaWorld. All of a sudden, these other artists were coming, and they were now looking at me,
Hmm.
and these other artists were seeing how fast I was adapting, and I was starting just to mimic Dave Camish's stuff.
Hmm.
And I was almost like getting to that level very quick, and I kind of became their star artist in that early phase and beginning. And so I was trying to help the other artists all the time, and there was this confidence because people were just like, "Oh, Steven Silver," at that thing, and it was just like kept putting me on this pedestal, which kept giving me this confidence, and I was soaking it all in. You're young, you're egotistical, you're just like, I want to be the best, and all this stuff, and all that changes as you get older. I don't have that a shred of that in my system anymore. It was a very early, young, youthful thing that I had but it helped me rise, for
Yeah,
that, for sure.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that that needs to be talked about a little bit more often. I mean, I come from a place where I didn't leave the house for 7 years because of extreme panic attacks, and then
Wow.
caricature is what kind of saved me. And I was always pretty confident as a person. Now, when I was agoraphobic, my ego just is gone. You can't be popular and not leave the house.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean, when I started getting back out and then doing caricatures in a live setting, like I still knew I could do it because I believed in myself. But that's not to go to say that I wasn't nervous or
Sure.
sweat was
Yeah.
beating down my
Right.
my forehead.
Yeah.
But I think that's a lesson in itself that allows people to be like, hey, this is normal, this is natural how you're feeling. But when you go over that hurdle, you don't know what else is going to open up. There's going to be way more
No.
doors that come at you that way.
Yeah, and absolute, without a doubt. And you know what else it really did for me doing live caricature? I mean, that confidence, of course, wasn't there in the beginning when I'm 18, 19. You're still nervous, you're going in.
Yeah.
But caricature, like you're saying too, it built that confidence, and it also built the level to experience that I was going to experience the rest of my journey was rejection and redos and working with clients. When clients would say redo something, it built a thick skin. You become
Hmm.
like a rhino, and you got this thick skin where nothing can penetrate it. When someone says something bad, and in the caricature world, you're doing those live caricatures, and you hear the chatter behind you, and people go, "Man, that looks nothing like that person. Well, that person, he sucks, man. It's horrible," And you hear these voices, behind your head, and then and that pressure, especially when you got a crowd of people all looking at you, is so nerve wracking. But in the real world, when I got into doing that, rejection it didn't ever phase me. I was never phased by rejection ever again after being a live caricature artist in a theme park. It just didn't exist because it forged steel,
Yeah.
it really does. And when I got into animation and everything else, the redos, hey, no, you got to go back to. I was never offended, like, oh man, you got to redo it. Well, you can't, no, blah, 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 trying to dig myself out of a hole. It's just like, all right, it's just like, I would get to the point in my caricatures where I would get so disappointed if I felt like I missed a likeness and there was a crowd of people behind me that when it came to airbrush, when I'm like, thank God I get to airbrush it now because I'm going to spill paint on it on purpose, so I got to redo it. So Jordan is like, oh, spill the paint. Oh, shoot. Oh, man, I'm sorry. I got to redo the caricature and start from scratch again because I became very, hard on myself that I got to get a likeness, and I would get so disappointed. And even today, I mean, it doesn't happen often when I try to switch styles sometimes, like right now I'm doing a form of caricature where I'm drawing people at conventions, but in cartoon styles that I've
Yeah.
developed and done. So when I'm switching my hats all the time, so sometimes I'll do something and go, and I know that people don't know and they don't see it, but internally in me, I'm just like, oh, dang it, I missed it, and it's just like, I usually, I don't restart it at that point. I'll just try to fudge it. But again, it still hurts when I miss a likeness on a
Just sneeze.
caricature.
You just sneeze on it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
You have okay. So when you first started doing live caricature, because I know a lot of people know you for that simplistic cartoony look. When you were
Yeah.
doing live caricature back in the '90s, was that the same style that you were imitating back
Oh
then?
no, not at all. It was Mort Drucker, Mort Drucker and Jack Davis and San Viviano.
Okay.
Those were like that's who I was just trying to mimic. And I'd get a lot of little crosshatch lines and doing all that, stuff that Mort did. And so it was all that. And Dave Camish was very heavily influenced, as so many of us, by Mort Drucker and Jack Davis. So there was a lot of his style within that too, but Dave Camish would get more cartoony. He would start to push people more cartoony and had a really great kind of cartoony aspect where I was trying to mimic that. So I was really a chameleon, and that's what you
Yeah.
have to be in the animation industry. You got to be a chameleon. You got to be able to adapt. And then it wasn't till I discovered Al Hershfeld where I was like, oh, I don't need all these lines in here to make it look like someone. Oh, it's all about spacing. It's all about distance. It's all about size. It's all about the order of things. So it's that's my thing now is shape, order, distance, and size become the main factors that you're looking at when you're trying to caricature someone or cartoon someone or design a character. Those are the elements that I'm looking at: shape, order, distance, size. And now I started just to break those down, and then I would grab. So this is the other thing that I would do. And now I'm grabbing a picture of Tom Cruise that from a photo, and now I'm grabbing the Mort Drucker. Oh, I see he used this reference, but I'm also looking at Al Hirschfeld's reference, pulling all
Hmm.
Al Hirschfeld's reference from magazines. And now I'm looking at Mort Drucker, Jack Davis, David Levin, all these caricature artists, about 5 different caricature artists, looking at their same source of reference. What did they do? Why did they make that decision? And I started to see the same repeated things. It's all about the shape, the order, the distance, and the size. Okay, but what do I need that extra bit of crow's feet for? Why does that change the caricature? Unless I'm drawing a really old person, why do I need to show that nostril like that? What about the inside of the ear? Do I really need to show all that information in order to get across that it's an ear shape? So all of a sudden it was process of elimination, and because of the pressures of the amount of people waiting to be drawn in the theme park, you got lines of people, at the different times. The summertime, you got, and the more people you drew, the more money you made. So I'm just like pulling back line, pulling back line, pulling back line. I don't need that. I'm still getting the same effect. And that's how it sort of evolved. But it wasn't
Okay.
like that in the beginning. Yeah, no.
Yeah. Okay. So in the beginning, it was more of like the Mort Drucker, Jack Davis style,
Yeah.
heavy. I would say that they use heavy lines. There's a lot of
Yeah.
details and cross
A
hatching
lot of heavy
in those
lines,
characters.
yeah, a lot of cross hatching, a little bit, shading, all the little extra stuff, and the fuzzing stuff too, because I was looking at fuzzing, so I
Hmm.
had Fuzzin's manual, as well. So the stuff that Farzan was doing back then too, which got a little bit more, you're really drawing that eyeball and you're really making sure you get the eyelashes and you really make sure you get the underneath of the lid and the top of the lid, and you're kind of getting very into it. And that's something that I was doing, in the beginning. And then when I met and started working with Tom Richmond, well, then there was the Tom Richmond, thing that he was doing, all that sort of stuff too. So now I'm following that. So now I'm just kind of in this world of all different artists in my head,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm trying to mimic them. I want to copy what Tom's doing. I want to copy what I'm trying to copy what everyone's doing. And eventually you just realize I don't need it all. Yeah.
Yeah. When you were at SeaWorld, do you remember who you were working with at the time?
Um, well, yeah, I do. But there are people that I'm just trying to think if there's anyone that really came out of that ended up really doing stuff. Like I met some of my best friends through there.
Yeah, because when you're
Oh, well,
working
one
together,
of them that I worked with was, she came later on. You probably know, was Andrea Walsh
yeah.
from ISCA. So she was working there. She's still going today, still doing it. So she's still doing it. But I had like friend like Matt Robinson, who people haven't heard of, a phenomenal artist. Yeah, shoot, I'm trying to remember if there's anyone that I really see anymore in the art world besides Steve Fishwick, but he wasn't working for. Was working for Commons Art after that.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, no one
Is
that's
there
jumping out in my mind right now.
is when you were working there, is there anything that you took away from your fellow artists that you still apply to today?
No, I've tried to. Oh, there was another guy named Bill Mouse, very talented artist. He's a comic book artist, always was and still does comics today, but isn't really in the caricature scene. No, it was really from Dave Camish. Yeah, when I
Yeah.
was at SeaWorld in San Diego, was just what I took away from him was the bold line. He would always, just say, just always give me sometimes shit for not drawing too light and
Mm-hmm.
say, get that dark line in there, Silver. Make it dark, make it bold, And he would always, he was a great mentor, And again, a lot of it was from just watching, right? And that's
Yeah.
where my part of my strength has been as an artist is from observation and just watching people. It's just like starting, okay, how they draw. Why did you make that decision to draw an eye like that? Why did you make the mustache look like that? What made you make the face look square as opposed to rectangle? So but yeah, I'd say it was from Dave, always stuck with me. And then again, it was just really just the greats. And as you know, it's repetition. You end up doing thousands upon thousands of faces, all the parties, all the events, all that stuff. And you start to form your own voice of what that's going to be. And it's always a challenge every time. It's always a trip. But I don't do caricatures. I stopped doing caricatures for a very long time. I was working in the industry. I was doing like 2 events a year, if that. So I was out of it for a long time. And it wasn't till last year where I'm just like, I really miss it. And I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
start doing it at conventions I go to. And that's what made me start doing it live again, But otherwise, me going to ISCA now is a horror show. Like I can't. It's like I don't do it anymore like I used to. That's nerve wracking for me to walk amongst all you great artists that are at ISCA. I'm just like, holy shit, look what's going on. It's just like my stuff. Forget it. There's an intimidation when I walk into that crowd for sure.
Really?
Yeah, just because again, it's not I don't feel like it's my thing anymore. It's like I still do it, but not to the extent. So I always feel like I'm kind of out of it, a bit. Like where everyone else that's in there, they just wrapped up the party yesterday before they showed up to that convention, or they're doing all this freelance stuff that's caricature based. So I kind of feel a little bit out of my element when I go there. I just love seeing the people, seeing all my friends and everyone there. Yeah.
That makes sense. I mean, I guess I can understand that. I just think that I'm going to be challenging. You you have been a big influence in the caricature world, even that you've been out of it. And for you to take the steps and adventures into the animation industry,
Yeah.
into character design, and then also your teaching and then your books,
Yeah.
that's heavily influenced among the caricature world.
Yeah.
So you just showing up and just saying, hey, I think it's more of a gift for these new artists just being like, whoa, Steven Silver's here. Because when I
Right.
first saw you, I was like, I never thought I would meet you, to be
Yeah.
totally honest, because I thought you were going on to bigger and greater things. But when I first saw you there, it I don't want to say got me emotional,
Mm.
but it made me realize this art form that we all love doesn't go away. You know,
No. Yeah.
you can still become, you know, go to greater heights in the
Yeah.
animation industry,
Yeah.
into film, whatever, but
Yeah.
there's still that passion there. And that kind of hits you.
Yeah.
And then you're like, I'm going to experience this. You know, I have the opportunity to go up into to new different heights,
Yeah.
and then also still have that love for this art form that taught
Oh
me so
yeah.
much.
It's always been my roots, right? I always started there, and I've always known in my life I'm going to end there.
Yeah.
It's always going to be this full circle because, well, I'm never going to stop doing caricatures, but I do see myself at some point just setting up my own little operation again somewhere and just sitting up where there's a bunch of tourists and drawing caricatures on the street, sort of thing, or in that environment, or parties again, because to me, it's so rewarding. It's so fun. You get to meet lots of people. You get to be at events. You get to be outdoors. Let's not kid ourselves. It's quick, easy money,
Hmm.
to sort of do it, and pays the bills. And it's just it's an awesome thing. It will always be within my heart and in my blood. And I'll never stop. Yeah. And that's that. I'll be back at it again for sure. And that's why I incorporated it into what I do now at conventions. I go to all these conventions all over the place, and I set up and I got my table and I draw caricatures of people. If you want to get a live caricature, I'll draw you, and
Hmm.
it's cool, and so yeah, it's never going to go away. Again, it's fun, it's quick. For me, I need that quickness. I don't want to labor over something. It's the reason why I don't, when people ask me to do commissions, I'm like, I'm not doing a commission. I'm not drawing other characters. I'm not going to sit there and have to let me draw your face.
Yeah.
That's the commission. Yeah,
I
yeah,
like that. You
yeah,
need to make that a banner. I want to draw your face.
yeah, yeah. So it's cool.
When you were doing the live caricature stuff in the 90s, you said one big thing was resilience, and then making your skin a little bit tougher,
Right.
with everybody making their own criticisms and stuff, especially when they're in backy. That makes total sense.
Yeah.
What helped you? I mean, when you were experiencing that in that moment, were you kind of flushed with frustration, or were you just feeling down on yourself in those moments? And if so, what was helping you kind of avoid that, going down that little rabbit hole of insecurity?
Yeah, no, you definitely feel down on yourself. You don't feel like you're worthy, and you don't feel like you feel like an imposter. And that's where the imposter syndrome sort of like sneaks in. That, oh my God, what am I doing? Is this, am I even a real artist? And then you get those assholes that would sit in front of you and go, "Do you do real art?" It's just like, well, what's real art? What? If I paint a landscape, that's real art. It's just like now I'm gonna up even more. Now I'm really gonna say you're a new asshole. But you just, and then the people that would stand behind you or say something negative, then it was their turn to get drawn, and then I'd go in and really mess them up. But no, it was something where, yeah, there would always be the support of the other caricature artists, I think. And that's what's important, is you kind of had your team, and we were all going through the exact same thing. So we were never alone. It's like we all got rejected, right?
Yeah.
We all have those stories, every single one of us. And I think just knowing that kind of builds you up. So you would talk about those stories. And I think communication is what drives everything. And to be able to communicate, and you go to lunch or afterwards work, would go hang out, and we talk about the horror stories that happened, or this happened. But then there'd be that motivation to where I got to get better. I got to get better. And I just started, I'd always be practicing. Again, I was always filling up sketchbooks. I was just, even when I was, so there's a lot of caricature artists and people you see, in between drawing caricatures, they might be just sitting around doing nothing or just standing there. I was always drawing. If I wasn't drawing someone and it was a slow day, I'm flipping through my Mad magazines. I'm pulling out magazines of just humans and other people and reference and for gesture drawing. And I was just always sketching and drawing. And that was another thing that I think people really saw in me, too. They saw that this guy's a freaking drawing machine, man. He doesn't stop. He's
Mm-hmm.
always trying to get better. He's not settling,
Mm-hmm.
because it's very easy to become complacent. It's very
Yes.
easy to, and especially in the caricature world, because most people can't even draw a straight line with a ruler. And the fact that you can even draw anything, they're just like fascinated and so amazed. And it could be the looking caricature, and it's just like, we've seen our share of caricature artists out there. Again, I don't want to, just say anything mean to anyone, but again, there are a lot of really bad caricature artists out there making a lot of money and doing really well, and they're at the exact same place they were 20, 30 years ago. They just got complacent. It worked. It was a formula. It's just like boom, 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 eyes, nose, mouth, chin, and they just stick to that, and there's no growth, in there. For me, it was never like that. I knew I wanted just to get better, I was very hard on myself. Always. I was always
Yeah.
hard on myself, Yeah.
Yeah, that I guess this is like full circle going back to like you having a hard time concentrating, but at the same time you like jumped in the pool and were underwater for like 5 hours, and everybody's like, "What is he doing?"
Right.
So
Yeah.
it just
Yeah.
seems like you got addicted to wanting to approve yourself.
Oh, without a doubt. And I also knew there was no plan B for me. I had no college education. I had no other, I had no degrees. I had no backup. What was I going to do? I mean, I was going to go into the military when I first got out of high school. And it wasn't till because I got hired at SeaWorld, that stopped me from joining the military. In
Hmm.
hindsight, I wish I would have joined the military and experienced that and done that, and maybe drawn in the military like Jack Davis did, drew for the Naval
Yeah.
Times, and all that, and that would have been really cool opportunity. But yeah, there was no. What else was I gonna do if I don't make this work? And my stuff wasn't good enough, in the illustration world. I wasn't doing what those guys who were being hired in New York and the Mark Fredricksons and the more Mad Magazine was always a dream, but my stuff was never in that level that I, could do these pages and draw the same face 20 times and all these different, because I just didn't have that capability, at that time. And so that what else was it going to be? How else was I going to make money, and do, what was I going to do with my life? And then my parents were going to be right, and I needed a college education. I needed a degree. So it was, to me, I was just all in. And that's what it was always been. It's just like, and that's what I truly believe. And I believe with all of us as individuals, it doesn't matter where you're from, what you do, what background you come from. We get to make a choice and decide what we want to be and what we want to do in this life. And we can, if we put in the effort and we put in the time, this is the land of opportunity. America is the greatest country on earth, and I truly believe that. And it's just like, you can do it, but do you really want to? And again, not everything's going to work out, but then you got to pivot, and you learn how to pivot, and you realize, hey, that didn't work out, let me try something new, instead of being defeated. And it's always these stepping stones into something else. My career has been a wild Mr. Toad's wild ride, but it's only partially because of my ADHD. I'm like, squirrel, squirrel, where's the next thing? Well, what am I doing now? I can't settle on doing one thing for too long. That's my own nature. I can't, not everyone has that. Some people are just like, I need to go all the way through, and I'm going to stick with this. Or, for me, I'm like that in ways like, okay, I got to get better at my art. But it was that driving force of just that desire to get better and improve and help. And I'll tell you what also helped. It does help getting seen and heard and recognized. And when all of a sudden, but there's a bit of a pressure to that too. When you're kind of thrown a bit on a pedestal, there's like, oh my God, I got to maintain this. I got to keep this going. It's just like, I don't know what people see in me and my stuff, but oh, I better keep going, and
Mm-hmm.
that puts a bit of a pressure and a bit of fire in you, too. But it's tough in that sense. But again, through that, I realized I got to a point where I don't care what anyone thinks about my artwork anymore. I'm doing things because I love whatever I want to love to do. I don't have, there's nothing I'm trying to say with my art. I'm not trying to win any awards. I'm not trying to climb any ladder. I don't need to have my own gallery show. I don't need my own movie. I don't need any of this. All I want is just to be content and happy with what it is that I'm doing with my art. That's all that matters to me now. Where again, I was younger, right? And but that getting that really did help me, though. The point is when you get people encouraging you and they're behind you and they're just like, man, you're doing awesome, dude. I love your stuff. It's just like, oh, thanks. Instead of, oh, it's all right. It could be better. You just say, no, hey, thank you. And it's just like, and that kept boosting me every time I kept hearing that. And then I go to ISCA. That opened up my whole world. And the first guest artist that was there was John Cashed, who I love his work, always have. And he was in San Diego. And he was the first guest speaker that I saw. It was my first convention. I can't remember what year it was. It was again, I've been going to ISCA for the last 20 plus years or something at least. But, I was already working in the studios. So, yeah, I think I was at maybe Warner Brothers at the time. But going there and seeing all these artists, and I didn't even know what it was. Like all of a sudden I was just there, my first ISCA, and I'm just like sitting there. I set up my easel and I'm just drawing caricatures and people are just coming in and sitting in front of me and I'm just drawing them like normal, like I would have done at SeaWorld. And someone, I don't know who it was, but they're just like, what are you doing? You get a wall. You don't have to do these quick caricatures. You should really do something like, spend your time on it. I'm just like, oh, is that what people kind of like doing? And then I remember, I don't remember what award I got that very first year, but I got an award. But that first year, it was like seventh place on something. I don't even know. And I got up there and I got the award and I cried.
Mm-hmm.
I was so grateful that it was like my first award sort of thing. Like, wow. And it was amongst my peers. And it wasn't just from a committee of 2 or 5 people like a lot of these things are. It was from all your peers. And that was so freaking special. And then each year I'd get more awards and all of that. And then the last one, when I got the Golden Nosy, was beyond freaking belief. That was a time where, again, it was, I know the voting system changed and everything, but you had to kind of win every single thing. The likeness competition, you had to win this
really?
competition. Yeah, you had to win in all the different categories at that
To
time.
get the Golden Nosy?
In the early Golden Nosies and all that.
I
Yeah,
didn't know
you had
that.
to. Yeah. You had to be like the top in the being voted again, and it was all by your peers. All 200, 300 of us walking around, looking at the wall and going, I'm going to mark down that guy's number. You didn't know who it was, but you're marking the number. And that was really special to me because all of a sudden I kind of on those. And then when I won that award, it was still today the greatest accomplishment and award I have ever won in my life because it was amongst 200 plus of my peers, all of us doing the same thing. And like I said, a lot of these awards, from the Emmy Awards to the Annie Awards to all these, NCS awards, it's all a committee of 2 or 3, 4 people
Mm-hmm.
voting. And to me, I'm just like that. I just feel like that's special. I think I like that's what I love about ISCA. It's all of us. We get to do that. And that really set me on a trajectory too. Like, man, this feels really good. And that kept me going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't get the caricature so I didn't do theme parks. I never started out in a
Okay.
theme park or anything like that. I just started doing it on my own, met my good friend Bobby, and then we started doing festivals together. So I never got the caricature artist experience of meeting artists and interacting with artists.
Okay.
And when you go to ISCA, man, I like saying that we're all the same people with different fonts.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
just we have a love for something, we share that, but also we all got a personality. We're all like little characters.
Yeah.
We all like making people laugh and give them an experience. And when 2 people are bouncing off of that, you you learn more and connect more that way. And then also you kind of set down your pride a little bit, and you just connect better
Yeah,
because you're
absolutely.
more vulnerable. You're
Yeah.
vulnerable
Mm,
with that love.
yeah.
And that's one reason why I love Iska, just because you meet everlasting friends there.
Absolutely. And, and to your point, just with that camaraderie of that, or what you missed was when you're doing the fairs, the festivals, you're in there and hustling. You're in there, you're trying to make a buck, and you got all these people. You're not going to be standing around watching the other caricature artists draw or do that in that theme park environment. That's where I got to stand behind Dave Camish and just watch him draw. I got to stand behind Tom Richmond and just watch him draw. I got to stand behind these other artists that I liked what they were doing, got to sit and watch them draw, right? So you're sucking, taking it in, you're soaking it in, where you're not at a party, where just doing a party caricaturist gig. You're in there for 2-3 hours and one after another, and you go home. You're not,
Hmm.
it's not a learning atmosphere, where the theme parks to me was a learning atmosphere. And you're right. And that's what ISCA is. It's a learning atmosphere. And I encourage so many people, just if they can, go there, even if you don't draw, just walk around and see the magic that people are doing. And just,
Yeah.
I've been at ISCA for so long. I don't go as much anymore, just scheduling different things, but I was there every year from when I first started 20 whatever years ago. And just watching the evolution of, digital didn't exist. No one
Yeah.
did digital, to be honest. Just because I'm old school, I'm just like, sometimes wish people weren't doing digital, still. Like, I wish they were just drawing it all. Just, it was a different time, and people were, and then there used to be, you weren't allowed to put stuff up there if it was drawn from a photo. You had to draw the person live while they were
Hmm.
sitting in front of you. We had to be in a group circle, and that was the caricature. You can't take a photo of someone and go up to your room and come back down 20 hours later with a masterpiece, done. You weren't allowed to do that. That wasn't in the rules. That was
Hmm.
against the rules. So there were a lot of different changes. So it was interesting just watching all the progression, and then where the caricatures started to get way more abstract. That crowd of caricature artists started to come in and really pushing the boundaries, and you start to get into this whole other thing, which was cool. And then there was the time when people were getting offended, and you had to deal with that bull of someone being upset the way they were drawn. It's just like, come on, man, it's caricature. Let's just have, And so all these things started changing, as the different people were coming in, and but it's a great place. What it's turned into now, again, I love it. I love all the mixture of everything now. The computer, people, again, using all different mediums,
Hmm.
using their iPads, sculpting, doing all that. Japanese people coming in and creating freaking crazy, where you're
Yeah.
just like, what the hell is that? Awesome. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoy it too because I mean, I can't I feel like there's different eras of
Yes.
caricature.
Yep.
I'm experiencing it now just a little bit, where I think when I came into it, a lot of people were more influenced by, the traditional sense of caricature, kind of like Tom Richmond,
Right.
and then Joe Bloom. But then there was I don't want to say outcasts, but the guys that did heavily exaggerated caricatures. And a lot of people were like, that's different. And then now it's kind of morphing into that a little bit
Yeah.
more. So you
Yeah.
kind of, I'm not saying that you have to be an exaggerated caricature artist. That's not what caricature is.
Right.
But I feel like a lot more people are appreciating how much you can stretch the boundaries of
Totally.
exaggeration a little bit more compared to, I mean, I would even say 15 years ago. 15 years
Oh
ago,
yeah.
everybody would stick their nose up at it and be like,
Oh
"This is
yeah,
not a caricature."
absolutely. No, you're
So,
right. And actually, because of that, there's big, what the caricature artists that stretch the out of people have given a rebirth to caricature entertainment, where you could almost say that it's opened up so many more avenues for artists to be hired now, to build their YouTube channels, build their Instagram, their TikToks, and this growth because of this art form, which has really evolved caricature in a whole new light. And people know caricature now more than ever, because so many people are like, yeah, oh, you do caricatures? I've seen those guys on TikTok, and
yeah.
just like it becomes that sort of thing. But again, you got to know your client. and your client base. There's some clients you don't want that at all. They're going to be horrified, if you do that. And some of them, they're hiring you for that. That's what they want. That's their expectation. So you just got to know your client. So when you go to a party, that if you're doing something so extreme that it's just like people are just like, what the hell, this is not what we wanted, I'm not paying you. But you got to be, people got to know, you got to show what you do. And again, don't lead people astray. Don't show them a cutesy caricature and go in and make them look like a grotesque Frankenstein when they're the client's always right. So it's just know what your
Correct.
client wants. But I think, to me, that this whole movement, to me, it's a movement of this exaggerated caricature, which I'm just like blown away by and love it, because it's built this whole new appreciation to the art form, which is awesome.
Yeah, I agree with you, especially with, I would say, knowing your customer or client.
Yeah.
If you're in stand-up comedy, you're not going to go to, an old person's home and start doing like dark humor jokes. And you
Right.
might be able to. I'm not
Yeah.
saying you can't.
Right.
I'm just
Right.
saying that you do have to learn your audience and know who's in your chair.
Yes.
But with that said, I do think there's a conversation that you can have ahead of time, kind of showing them what you want to do and why you want to do it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's hard to communicate, especially on the spot.
Yeah.
It's, I think a lot of people are like, hey, I'm going to tear you up.
Right.
And if you approach it at that direction, people are a little bit more turned off by it.
Yeah.
But when you approach it in like, hey, I want to be creative,
Yeah.
and you're giving me an opportunity to do this,
Which is
and
awesome.
I'm not looking at like trying to offend you or anything.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to give you an experience.
Yeah.
That's something that I'm proud of.
And I think if you have those samples, again, samples help. And I've seen more caricatures showing, do you want the grotesque caricature? Do you want more of a soft? So they're listing it, so people, the client the customer can choose that option. Oh, I want to be a zombie, like that became a thing. I want to draw me like a zombie caricature, or whatever it may be. You're giving people the options, to do that. Yeah. But the worst thing is, again, you always want your customer to be laugh, right? That's the goal. You want to flip over that drawing and you want them to go, oh, instead of just like, that, yeah, that you want your stomach to drop, when you do caricature and there's no reaction.
Yeah.
That's the worst, that's so that'll be $20, please.
Yeah, that makes you sweat a little bit for sure.
Yeah.
Also, you kind of know when somebody sits down what's about to happen and how they're going to react too. When somebody sits down and you're like, this ain't going to go well. And there, you have an eternal battle, almost like an angel and a demon pop up on your shoulder, and they're like, do something creative, just do it.
Yeah.
And then the angel's like, no, you need to be kind and just give them something that they're going to be okay with. And if you listen to Satan a little bit, you're gonna see a different reaction for sure.
Yeah.
But sometimes I feel like no direction is wrong at that point. In my belief, if somebody sits down for a caricature and they do get offended by it, they're the ones that initiated it. And but I'm talking retail exclusively.
Right. Yeah.
At parties or events or gigs, as I call them, you need to kind of read who you're working with, of course.
Totally.
And there's people that request, hey, because on my company, we do have the crazy caricature artists and we got the more tame artists.
Okay.
And we try to be versatile as much as you can.
Yeah.
I mean, I can do a super cute caricature. It's still exaggerated, but I like doing the more extreme. But we talk clients and, hey, why don't you get both? Why don't you get a cute caricature artist and a crazy caricature artist? And when you guys, when that dynamic's there, it makes the party way more eventful, in my opinion, because people will walk past, they'll see, oh, that's adorable. He got her eyelashes and she looks cute. I kind of want to get one. And then they look over and they're drawing their uncle and he's got 5 chins and they're like, oh, I'm staying around to see how he reacts for sure. I'm going to definitely stay in line now. So that dynamic there is impressive, and I'm glad that we kind of integrated that in our
What do
business.
you find the balance? Do you find that you're getting what is it, 50-50, people picking the more, or as you get one, the 70% of clients are picking the tame ones over the exaggerated ones?
So
Or
that's a good question. When we advertise, like, because we did a party once and it was Christmas, and then there was the naughty and nice line, and I was the naughty boy.
okay,
Nobody really stood in my line, but when there's no direct, kind of definition on what we're doing, it's pretty 50-50. And then
okay,
I also find that people that get the cute caricature will come back and then get the crazy
just
one.
to get another
So they
side.
want they want both experiences. I do think that's fine, and that's one reason why I love caricature, is because when they resonate with it more, they understand that they can collect these things and they're from different caricature
Right.
artists,
Yeah.
and that the more you see the volume going up on the different caricatures, is that's when it resonates with people, and they're like, I want it this way and I want it that way, I want this artist to draw me, I want that artist to draw
Yeah.
me. And I love that, because when I first got started in caricature, I made a list of everybody that I wanted to draw me, because I was on Instagram, Facebook, looking up these people, and I was like, I need a caricature by this guy, this guy, this guy, and I
Nice.
still have that list to this day. So I cross out every
Oh,
time
that's
I
so
would go to
cool.
ISCA or anything like that, just getting that collection going. So it means a lot when I see other customers integrating that.
Yeah, that's great. My worst experience drawing character, one that was distinctly I always remember was my worst thing ever, was when I was at SeaWorld in San Diego. They were father and mother came with their son who was had Down syndrome, and he sat in front of me, and the parents told me, draw him but make him look normal.
Oh,
I'm
that's
just
nice.
like, yeah, I was just like, geez. And then it was a time where you get all these people around you. So here I'm drawing this kid, with Down syndrome, but looks nothing like him, because I'm just like, I guess I got to do what the parents tell me to do.
Hmm.
They're paying, and they just, what a weird, horrible request. I'm just like, oh man, it's
Oh,
just
we
like,
get them all the
ooh,
time. You get it all the
oh,
time. I
oh,
honestly don't think people think before they open their mouth, and
no,
it's kind
no.
of funny. Like the whole per person thing. I'm pretty sure you got that all the time. Like, do babies count as a
Oh
person?
yeah.
Um, we were at a festival once. This is not one of my brightest moments, but I'm going to share it with you because I think you'd appreciate it. Um, I got told that like 4 times, and when you keep on hearing it, I'm not saying I was frustrated, but I was like, here we go again.
Here we
And I'm
go.
like, I
Yeah.
got to figure out a better response to this. So one lady was like, hey, how much is it for two people and a baby? And I told them, they're like, does it, but my baby, like, really? Like, that counts as a person? And I was like, look, lady, if I pick your kid up right here and soccer punt it all the way over to the other festival, are you going to get mad? She's like, yeah. I'm like, then it's a person.
Right. There you go. I like it.
And she
Yeah.
still
Perfect.
sat down in line and got a drawing, which is
Wow.
hilarious to
Wow.
me
Hey,
because I just threatened to kick her child
they
across this
hey,
festival.
that's a great, yeah, response. It's just like, it's crazy, yeah, the way that people think. I had this woman, she was heavy set, woman. I came, drew her, made her look heavy set, she was fat, and I just like she walked away. And then she came back over and she was hanging around. She didn't have her drawing anymore. And someone said, where's your drawing at? And so it's like, oh, I threw it away. He doesn't see fat people the way we see ourselves. I'm just like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
I do think that's a issue amongst caricature artists. They take, I mean, I'm even in this ballpark at times, like how I say I reacted when I threatened a child.
Yeah.
But we take things at too much face value on what people say, and I think some people just don't know what they're saying sometimes,
Yeah.
and that's okay.
Yeah.
And you don't really need to hold them accountable unless it's like violent or whatever.
Right. Right.
But I think for the most part, it's they'll say something offensive towards you, like that doesn't even look like the person, like
Yeah.
that's offensive to us,
Yeah.
but they don't understand what they're actually saying,
Right.
and you got to
Yeah.
just kind of let that slide off
Oh,
your
for
skin
sure.
and just keep going.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. There was another. Yeah, I remember this one time where. Yeah, yeah, and you're absolutely right, and that's the way it is. Again, it's like kind of like this, you got to have the mentality that the customer is always right. Again, these guys are
Hmm.
paying for this, whatnot, and like I remember just in the theme parks, there always used to be the one when there were like two kids, and you draw one kid over here, and then you draw the other kid's head over here, but you run out of room, so you just kind of made the other kid look like a puppet, so you got the hand in the puppet body, it's
Hmm.
got the head, and he looks like a little puppet. And there's one woman, there were all these people. This was when I was at Valley Fair with working with Tom Richmond, and the mother just like yelling and screaming at me, just like, you turned my son into a puppet in front of all these people. And it's just like they turned their son into a puppet, and then I went and complained to the park, and they came back, and then I, give them the money back and all this other stuff, and just like people are just like crazy, and but I always remember I would stick a sign on the front of my thing because people always ask you to fix stuff all the time, where I just kind of had a sign that says I'm an artist, not a magician, when just like, make me look like this, make me look like that, make me look like, it's just like, for crying out loud, man, I'm going to draw you how I see you. But yeah, but again, I cater to that too. I mean, I get ladies all the time. Again, usually it's a lot of the ladies who are more sensitive on how they're going to be looking and portrayed. And you get them in front of you and they go, just, can you make me just look a little thinner? Can you do that? It's just like, yeah, oh, yeah, absolutely. Again, yeah, this is what you want. I know it's going to make you very happy, so when you see it, again, and people have, of course, different perceptions of themselves. You don't truly know how you look.
Yeah,
You think you know how you
correct.
look, but you really kind of don't, and then when someone points it out to you, all of a sudden you're just like, what? What? My tooth does that? My chin, what?
Yeah. So question, when you were doing live caricature and then you pulled into the character design aspect, were you still maintaining doing live caricatures during that time?
Yeah, so I got hired into animation back in 1997, and I was part of a group called so I was still living in San Diego, and it was called the National Cartoonist Society, the NCS, and they had a San Diego chapter,
Hmm.
and they would always have guest speakers. And one of them was worked at Warner Brothers, and I had my portfolio, which was just full of caricatures, and I showed it to him, and he said, it's pretty good. Maybe, just keep in contact. And I kept in contact with him. And then I went up to Warner Brothers. He invited me up to Warner Brothers Animation, and I showed him my portfolio. And he said, I think they just fired their character designer. And they need a new character designer, and the whole show is based on caricatures. It's called Hysteria. So it was a show called Hysteria, which was all about all the designs were like caricatures of historical figures, and
Hmm.
my portfolio was just filled with caricatures. And I went and dropped it off. The producer and the director weren't there that day, so I just dropped off my portfolio, and then I got a call back from them saying, hey, they want to give me a test. And then I had to go back up there, and they gave me a test, and I had to draw um, Adolf Hitler, King Henry VIII, and Al Capone in the show style. So now,
Okay.
because of all my years of just sort of like practicing and copying Mort Drucker, Jack Davis, all that sort of stuff, and copying other artists, I could do that. I could sort of like mimic other people's styles and try to get into that thing. So they gave me a model pack of what the show style looked like, and I did that, and then I turned it in, and I gave them just a stack of drawings. And then it was still a while. It was probably maybe a couple weeks later. Then they called me back and offered me the job. So I was still in San Diego, and I had my own business. So I had started my own business, which was called Silver Tunes Caricatures. And I was very busy, and I was doing a lot of events all the time. But actually, I was, in a weird way, it was a weird time. Like I had a lot of trouble. Like I had to hire other caricature artists because I couldn't do all the gigs that I was getting in San Diego. But then I was starting to get clients that would just go in, they don't draw like you, Steven. We don't want them. And then I kept
Hmm.
getting people. There was a almost like a backlash that was happening from it. And I'd get some clients, they said, yeah, you sent the other artists and we weren't happy with what they were doing, and it's just like, and then they wanted partial refunds and all this. I'm like, oh my God. So then I had to sort of stop that and I had to go solo again. And I just kind of went solo again doing it. But then I got hired at Warner Brothers and I still had all my obligations from all my parties, all my contracts, because you're booking them, two,
Yeah.
3 months out. So I was just dealing with that. So while I was at Warner Brothers in LA, I was driving back to San Diego every single weekend to fulfill my events and do that until I started just stop taking parties and just telling people. Then I just would refer to other companies. I said, I can't do it, but this other caricature company or someone can do it, and go from there. So yeah, I was still very active, just doing that for a few years while I was working at Warner Brothers. Always doing the parties. Yeah, for sure.
With you being, given your experience with caricature, like 100%, always drawing, always just trying to push yourself creatively, and then kind of setting the hat down a little bit to transition to something else. Was that an emotional experience?
No, it's exciting. But
Okay.
I love change. Again, it's part of me where I can't stay in one place for too long or doing something for too long. I need change, and I thrive. I think the most in change. So when that was happening, I really felt like I'm going to the next level. I really felt like I was going to the next level now because animation and that world, and I grew up watching cartoons, and it's Warner Brothers and then Disney and Nickelodeon. And you just like, it's always just like, wow, this is getting to that next tier, of this
Hmm.
creativity scale, because we all start out as amateurs, right? We're all just starting off and we don't know. We all want to be something and we want to do something and we don't know what the hell we're doing. And our hope and dream is that people will hire us and pay us for what we love to do. How amazing would that be, to get to that level where someone's paying you money for a service of your art that you're providing? How cool is that? So that's the goal, right? Start as the amateur. Now I'm professional. Wow, I got the job doing caricatures. Wow, someone's hiring me to do parties. Whoa, I'm getting some freelance jobs on the side from just like random companies, businesses who need designs done or caricatures or whatever they needed done, logos done. Whoa, I'm getting paid doing that. And then animation came and I thought, whoa, now I'm working in animation. This is really cool. And then, but you realize it's not the end be all, and none of it really is. The grass is not always greener. We always believe that. And but so all these milestones and steps were those stepping stones. And but for me, I embraced it because it was just change. It got me out of my rut. It got me out of just doing what I've been doing for the last few years. And I just want a different environment. And that's why I would travel. Like every time when I was working doing caricatures, when I got sent to, Minnesota to do caricatures. I was sent to Kansas City to do caricatures in a theme park out there. I went to Atlanta. I actually went to Atlanta with Richmond during the Olympics in
Okay.
1996 at the Underground in Atlanta, doing that. And I was going all over the place just doing caricatures because I just needed that change. So that's what it's always been for me. So stepping into animation was just a change, and it was a change for the better. Like, well, now I'm freaking getting medical benefits and I'm getting health and I'm getting a fat paycheck and I'm just getting this and I'm in these environments, and it was just a whole different sort of beast through there. And that's what led me into, well, now I want to start publishing books. And then I started teaching, and I've always believed throughout my whole journey that you got to have multiple campfires. There's always been a belief of mine. You can't just have one thing, because some of those fires are going to burn out, and they do along the way. But if once that one campfire burns out, well, then I got the other fire that I can tend to and kindle and keep warm and keep going. So I've always been an artist that's never put all my eggs into one basket. So again, there's always been multiple things that I'm tackling at the same time. And that was, again, part of my ADHD. I just, again, can't focusing, concentrating. I need to do something different all the time. And that's kind of like what really happened for me when I transitioned into that. And then again, the teaching started as I started doing more of that. That led me to starting my own school and writing the books that I do and all that. And now I'm transitioning again even more, because of a big move that I'm making to go to Savannah College of Art and Design. I always wanted to work at a major university, but they would never hire me because I didn't have a degree, and this was the first school that's just like, yeah, but you got 30 years of industry experience. And so I think we'd like to have you here. And so that's opened up this whole new opportunity where we're going to be moving to Savannah, Georgia, and teaching at SCAD out there. Meanwhile, but they want you to have a freelance business too. They're not taking away my online school. I can keep that going. They
That's
want me to
good.
keep freelancing because they want you to be relevant. And so all the pieces of the puzzle are lining up. But yeah, so I've always just embraced the change. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel like that's something that a lot of people don't like doing?
Yeah, I do. I do. I did for sure. I feel people they want to find their little nest and they kind of want to stay there because it feels safe, And so that's why a lot of people don't end up advancing or doing something or building up or taking that leap because again it's scary. It's the real world out there, and the what if this doesn't work out, what if that happens, and they end up putting all this pressure on them instead of sometimes saying just do it. Yeah, Nike said it best, just do it, just get out there and just try something and just see where the wind takes you. But I know so many people who are afraid of change and don't want to change and don't want to take that risk because it's the unknown. And of course, again, the unknown is scary, but I also think it kind of makes your blood move faster through your body and gives you some adrenaline, and makes you
Hmm.
kind of do something, and I think if our blood wasn't pumping going through our veins 24 hours 7 days a week constantly moving, would be dead, and it's just like we got to keep the blood flow, we got to keep it moving. And so I think if more people took risks, I feel that they'd be happier. And even if they failed at it, I've failed at so many different things and different businesses that I've started or tried to do that didn't work out, but I'm so glad that I tried it, just to see what would happen. So I've always been a risk taker just because I'm like, why not? But not to that level that I'm going to put my family or anything
Yeah.
in jeopardy, right? I'm not going to
Yeah.
do crazy risks, thing like that. But I'm always willing to take risks and go, yeah, I might be out a couple $1,000s on this or something, but it's worth the risk. It's worth trying just to see what happens, and then I'll know. Because to me, my biggest fear in life would be the fear of regret, is
Hmm.
being on my deathbed and knowing that I didn't do so many of the things that I wanted to do. And I just turned 53 years old, and I can safely say and happily say that I have done everything that I've set out to do and wanted to do and accomplished nearly everything that I've wanted to do and be. There is no other thing for me. There's not, oh,
Hmm.
I wish in my life that I could do this and be this or that would happen for me. It doesn't exist. I don't have that in me at all. So I'm truly a free soul. I am just free as a bird and just roaming around this planet, just kind of doing what I love to do. Thinking up each day what I want to do, what I want to work on today, what I want to, explore today. Where do I want to go? Oh, hey, I got offered this job at Savannah. Yeah, let's try it. Let's see what happens. Go with the wind takes me. Again, it's not a crazy risk. It'll work out fine. And that's it, because that's the most important thing for me to do is not have regrets. And there's a great thing. I don't know if you've ever seen it. You can look it up online. It's called The Top 10 Regrets of the Dying. And it was
Yep.
written, yeah, and it's been written by, for those that don't know, written by these, the people on the,
They're
what
a
are the people
hospice.
called? Yeah,
Hospice.
the hospice nurses from all these people that were on their deathbed. So to me, that's a science. That's like all these people saying the exact same thing. That's the same top 10 regrets for the most part. Well, you better listen to that and see if it fits into your life right now and go, am I working way too hard, and not doing for my work, for my family, or anything else? Am I just care too much about what other people think? Is that
Hmm.
Am I doing that to myself in this lifetime? And and
Yeah.
you go through that and go, I'm not going to do that anymore. I don't care. I'm just going
Hmm.
to enjoy it, enjoy the journey. Yeah.
That's one thing I appreciate you. You're really good at one translating how to reshape yourself in order to be successful as an artist. And there's not that much content on that a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
Plus, I like seeing you hold a little piece of paper and just have your little
Yeah.
phrases. But yeah, you do. You're, I don't want to say guru, but you're like the guru of like artists right now. And I think a lot of people appreciate that aspect because when you first get into it, you're like, okay, I got to learn how to draw eyeballs. I got to learn how to draw
Right.
noses, body
Yeah.
poses, all of this. And then you're kind of left with, well, what's the next step?
Yeah.
And then I do think the psychological side plays a big part for a lot of people, and
Massive.
I'm living in that now. I'm having to reshape myself, and we were talking about if you really want it, you're going to have to sacrifice some things. So like
Yes.
me, for example, I want to have a successful caricature company. I want this YouTube thing to kick off. And I do find myself slacking with being like, I'd rather play a video game or I'd rather watch a movie. And
Yeah.
then it's like it's taking that time away from getting there quicker. So I can't move forward and see what the next opportunity is,
Mm.
Like you're saying, like there's multiple campfires that you need to have.
Yeah.
And if you just have one, when it goes away, you're reacting. You're going to
Oh.
be very upset and not handle it well.
All you're
And it
doing
takes
is at that point, yeah, just trying to find that lifeboat, and your mind is all that's in your mind, and your conscious mind is, how do I pay the next bills? How do I do this? And you can't focus, you can't do anything creative at that point. Your
correct.
mind is stressed. You're
Yeah,
giving yourself a stressful situation, and you haven't put the lifeboat down before you jumped off ship or whatever ends up happening, and that's a big deal, you know.
for sure. And I think that's one reason why I appreciate you so much, man. It's so
Thank you.
refreshing to know that there's somebody out there that's trying to translate the 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 psychological side of being a
Yeah.
creative. And that's not out there. So I commend you on that a
Well,
lot.
thank you.
Actually, I really appreciate
I
that.
mean, it eats up again. It's really, again, you can talk to any and every artist, and that's we every single one of us, and even non-artists are going through that. Everyone's trying to just to steer the ship and
Yeah.
make sure that their ship is heading in the right direction, whatever it is. And I think it is, of course, you got to build up your talent set. If you want to be working and you want to be gainfully employed and keep something going, well, you got to have talent. There's
Hmm.
no faking that, right? So there's a lot of effort and energy that has to go into that, whether it might even not even be in your drawing, it might be your storytelling, it might be the way you communicate. Maybe you got some other sort of gift that's really, but that's it. There's a talent there, but you got to work on that, again, if you want to keep getting those opportunities, because it's the real world, again, no one's gonna hire someone, we got to always look at us. I'm not gonna hire just half-ass someone on through Yelp, a plumber that's got 2 ratings, star ratings, right? I want the 5-star rating guy. I want to go eat at the restaurant that has the 4 or 5-star ratings, not 1 star. I'm not going into that restaurant, and that we got to think about that with our art too, that, hey, people see that. Not everyone's going to see it, whether you're uber talented or not, and again, you can still be gainfully employed and not be the best artist. Absolutely, you can make it happen. But I think it's that the mindset is like, it's almost like 90% of it. 10% is the drawing, the talent asset. The rest of it is how you navigate your mind through all this, how you prepare
Hmm.
yourself, and the sacrifices you got to make. I like to use the analogy of a florist. If you decided that you wanted to be a florist, that was going to be something that you wanted to do. Sorry, my air conditioning just went on, so you
You're
might be able
good.
to hear
Yeah,
it.
we can't hear it. You're
Oh, you
good.
can't hear it? Okay. So if you wanted to be a florist, and that's something that you decided you want to do, well, you got to be willing to get a brick and mortar store, most likely, right? You're not doing it online. You got to be prepared to work on the weekends. You got to be to work on the holidays, Mother's Day, Christmas, Thanksgiving, and there's going to be a sacrifice. That's something that you're going to have to do if this is what you truly want. So that's what it comes down to. It's like, do you really want this?
Yeah.
And sometimes you think you do, and then you
Hmm.
realize, It's really like I've gone through that so many times in my career. Like I thought I wanted to be a painter, you know, and I want to do oil painting, and I started it, and I realized, yeah, you know, it's really not for me. I'm kind of a line guy, you know. That's where I am, and you know, you start to figure it out. But I think it's important again just to know that and explore something. Always explore it. Whether or not it works out or not doesn't matter, but at least you tried it. Once again, you won't have regrets, you know. So that's the big thing. But it's all mindset, man. All of this stuff, it's just, I can't tell you how many artists I meet all the time. The anxiety, the depression, I mean, people we know, I mean, commit suicide, you know. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it gets to real deep dark places, you know, with people on that front. And then what's really fucked it up for a lot of artists, which is unfortunate, is social media, because
Mm-hmm.
we're always comparing ourselves now. We're always looking at other people's work, where it used to be the day before this, you'd see someone in a magazine or something and go, they're awesome, I want to aspire to be that. But then there's that fear of missing out, the FOMO, and people putting up, and they're there and they're doing this and they got their artwork there and they just got hired. Oh, look at me, I just got hired at this, you know, place. It's just like, you know, why wasn't that me? You know, and it becomes all this sort of like pressure that happens, and social media has made it a cesspool of chaos because of that, you know, really, and made artists feel, I'm not getting any likes. No one likes me. I
Mm-hmm.
don't have as many followers. You know, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with my
Mm-hmm.
art? And this pressure. And it's like all this noise. And I think the minute you can let go of the noise and just go, I don't give a shit what people think. I don't give a shit what people like it. I'm going to do what I love to do, and I'm gonna put it out there like you're doing here with this podcast, and then I'm gonna like, this is what I want to do, and I'm gonna try something new, and I'm gonna put it out there, and I'm gonna see if people react. Of course, you want to build that, but with anything, it just takes time. You know, like they say, it's a marathon. It's not a race. And because of society today, with everything being so instantaneous, if we don't get that gratification right away, we feel, something's wrong, something's matter. The people, but it just takes time and it keeps work. And there's a guy that I don't listen to him as much anymore. I like him a lot. I just don't, for whatever reason, just don't see him as much in my feed. But his name is Gary V. And this guy, Gary V, is a business guy, but very intense, and just a real intense guy and motivational guy, but so intense, but a brilliant businessman. And he started a YouTube channel many years ago. He got into the family business of selling wine. And he told his dad, in order to grow this, we need a YouTube channel and a YouTube presence and start letting people know what we do. So for years, it was like 3-4 years, he was building up this wine channel, and it was slowly getting things, and he did it consistently every single week, but he not getting the followers and not doing that. But eventually it started growing and building and blah, blah, blah. Before you know it, there's millions of people looking at it and everything else. Again, it's just all these things take time, and our attention span is so much shorter these days. We just don't have time to wait in line anymore. I'm not waiting. That's 3 minutes. That video is 5 minutes long. Oh my God, that is way too long for me to watch.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I need to watch a 1 minute video. You know, it's the attention span is just, we're evolving into a species of
Instant gratification.
instant gratification. Exactly. Yeah.
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 Yeah, I think I do want to put emphasis that, yeah, that's natural.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm struggling with it now with this YouTube channel. It's I think it's natural to be disheartened,
Yeah.
but that's not going to stop me.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to
Yeah.
keep doing what I want to do, and I'm going to keep exploring this because my love is for caricature, and this could potentially spread caricature.
Absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely.
when I heard through the grapevine that you did do hiring for animation. Is that true?
Yeah. I was a recruiter at Disney. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
What was one of the? I understand portfolio and all of that's very important, but since we're on the the mental side of everything,
Yeah.
how much did that play a part into the hiring process?
Um, well, the hiring process, again, it all comes down to your portfolio. I mean, it's the bottom line. It's your portfolio, is your diploma, it's your degree, it's everything. It's a place where you got to show the recruiter who you truly are. Like the resumes are just a formality, but you just got to be extremely versatile. But what I honestly tell people, again, what happens a lot is when I was looking at portfolios for, sometimes it'd be one position, I'd get anywhere from 700 to 2,000 portfolios for one
Oh,
position.
wow.
And so I always tell people now, stop waiting in line. That's always stop waiting in line just to be chosen, to be picked. Don't stop it. Just keep moving forward with what it is that you want to do and keep building up that portfolio, make it better. Once that portfolio is, you'll end up like taking out of all those portfolios, you'll mix it down to, you get it down to about 30 portfolios, and then those 30 portfolios end up going to the directors, and then they make their decision, and they'll pick about 4 or 5 different people they want to interview, and then they got to interview them, and then the way you communicate in the interview plays a major role, because now I'm going to be working with you 40 hours a week. Now,
Yeah.
if you're a dud, and if you're just a real uninteresting person, or you're not inquisitive and all that, that plays a huge role, because that other person that I interviewed out of those 4 or 5, well, their personality was pretty awesome. They could communicate, and yeah, I think I'm going to go with them. The part was, as being a recruiter, every time I would get the list, the final person that they wanted to hire, they would oftentimes never tell me why they didn't hire the other people. When the other people go, why didn't I get picked? Because they were too nervous about actually saying that person had a shitty personality, or that person couldn't communicate, or that person was really boring. They didn't want to say what they really felt about the person, because they didn't want to hurt someone's feelings. And it all comes down to hurting someone's feelings. And this is where I felt like that's wrong. I feel like, tell me, because that's going to help that person.
Yeah.
If I could tell you, hey, you know what, in the interview, they just felt that you weren't had a lot of energy, that
Yeah.
you didn't have it. So that's something you should work on. Hey, thanks for letting me know, instead of, what? They said I didn't have it. People can, not everyone can take a beating, but we're caricature artists, so we can take a beating. And that's where it comes
Yes.
down full circle with what caricatures can do for you, is make you be able to take a beating. Where a lot of people are very sensitive, and artists in general are very sensitive, and don't want their feelings hurt. Again, there's got to be certain rules. We can't make you be nasty, otherwise someone's going to get offended. So it's a mad world like that, but that's the world we live in. Just be strong. Hey,
What?
anyone that's listening out there, everyone listening out there, just freaking build up some cojones. Bill, get some, bulls, and that's it. And you'll
Can
do
you write
okay
that
in
on a
this life.
paper and hold it up and
Yeah,
take a picture of that? Build some cojones.
yeah.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think I don't want to say cynical, because that seems a little exaggerated, but that's
Yeah.
the only word that's attaching right now. Why do you feel like artists are more cynical to the world?
You know, I think, yeah, I don't know. I think there's just more of we're a compassionate group. I think we're a compassionate breed of individuals. We see things oftentimes in a different way, in a different light, and observe things differently. And I think maybe that can add to it. And it's the way I see humans, all humans. I look at all humans as, we're all a bunch of weeds and flowers and everything else. And not all weeds and flowers can get along. And some flowers can't live next to other flowers because they will literally kill each other. And I think we're just like that in humans. And there's some flowers that can really take a beating from the wind and stuff, and other flowers that the wind will come through and just kind of, all the petals will be wiped off straight away. Same with trees and everything else. There's some that are just strong. And I think just artists in general, I think just because of their, there's just I don't know. I don't really know why there's such a sensitive side to a lot of artists, but I think that's what sort of oftentimes can cripple an artist. But also, I think it can weaken the artist too, because the artist, it's almost like these these tropes of things that I say, artists are a dime a dozen. Oh, I'm just a dime a dozen. I'm not worthy, and
Mhm.
people have made to feel, that artists aren't worthy for so long that we always, you know, I don't know. Yeah, we've always just kind of been looked. There's part of people, of us that are looked down upon, but then we're sort of raised up too because you're an artist. Oh my God, I wish I could do that. I could never do that. But artists, it's always like the parents. You're never going to make it as an artist, and I don't know. There's this definitely stereotype and connotation, and maybe artists have just started to truly believe it. And I do think there is a full. I don't. I do think there's a problem with artists being so sensitive in this
Yeah.
world, and I think it's harmful to them, and I think it's harmful to everything really, and it can, and what's happening, and I know we were going to maybe mention it and talk about AI in that area too. And I think the sensitivity towards artists is going to cripple them and eventually destroy them because of this. Sometimes we got to get on this stand and we got to all be the same and we all got to be together in this one voice. And I think there's a danger in that, at times.
I agree. I mean, I've been trying to figure out how to kind of phrase it with AI because, like, I listen to you a lot about how you talk about it. I know there's a lot of pushback for you.
Yeah.
I do think what you're trying to say is this is going to stay around.
Yeah.
What we need to do is keep pushing forward, be versatile to this other thing that's happening. So that way that we're more of a commodity
Yeah.
during this. I
Yeah.
think that's what you're trying to say, right? Am I
Absolutely.
wrong?
Absolutely. No,
Okay.
absolutely. It's having the awareness with it, because it's not that AI is going to stop you from getting a job. The people who don't have any knowledge or awareness of the AI are going to be the ones who don't get the job. It's going to be the artists and the people out there who embrace AI and understand its capability and knowledge of it. You're going to get hired as an artist. It's like all these other industries out there. It's like you can still be hired as an engineer and a coder and everything else. But if you bring on an awareness and understanding of AI, well, now you're going to be more valuable to us
Hmm.
because this
Yeah.
is the way the world is going. And so, for those that neglect that and keep pushing it aside, those artists are absolutely going to miss the train. Again, it's not that you got to use AI in everything that you're doing in your artwork or even use it at all, but it's that awareness and having an understanding of the capability. And maybe it can be that tool to help you save time. Maybe you're working with a bunch of different clients and you can use AI to break something down for you that, man, thank God I didn't have to just sit for 5 hours thumbnailing something out, trying to really figure it out when I just needed AI to maybe help me figure some lighting or something out on
Yeah.
on a subject or what, again, whatever it could be. Embrace it. Like in animation, it's like what's going to happen in animation. It's not like it's going to get rid of all the pre-production, the concepts, the ideas. Where AI is going to be a tool and help people is all the production stuff in regards to, well, now we've got to animate and do all the in-betweens and everything else. That takes up so much time. Meanwhile, we got everything that we need, but we just need to cut the costs down and build that up. It's just the way it's going to be, and it's going to go that way. But I think that there's going to have to be an embracing of it on that front, and not just like just shooting a messenger every 2 seconds. And that's the thing that drives me nuts just in this industry, just with artists, is artists are going to kill each other before AI kills us, because they're attacking each other. Their
Hmm.
artists are attacking each other for their use of it, even minor use of it or anything else. And it's just like, guys, enough. Just listen. Do what you're gonna do. Be yourself. It's like who said the Oscar Wilde thing? Be yourself, because everyone else is already taken. And it's just like, stop with this madness and just go focus and learn these tools, learn these things. Don't bury your head in the sand, because you're gonna be left behind in the dust for sure.
Yeah, I agree. Um, I do think it's a common theme amongst artists, and it's like a topic that repeats in conversation. And I think my belief is when people hear repetition of a conversation, it becomes more real,
Yeah,
and then they become more reactive.
yeah,
And I think this. I don't want to say everybody's being reactive about this. It's going to be a change for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
But I think what you're trying to say is this cynical attitude that you hold about the world's going to end. This is going to
Right.
be bad. This
Right.
is it. This is
Yeah.
it for
Yeah. Yeah.
artists.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You're trying to say, hey, flip that coin and look at it more on the fact of what can I do
Yeah.
to better myself against this thing.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's gonna be a renaissance in a way, with it all. It's just like even the caricature. People want experiences and even more.
Yes.
And even as more AI keeps going and everything's on the computer, people are gonna say, you know what, I want to get out of the freaking house and I want to see something and I want to see an entertainer and I want to see wow, that you people are fascinated when they watch you hand draw their face. Just
Yeah.
like they're mesmerizing. God, I wish I could do that. That's so amazing. And they're gonna keep paying. And caricatures are. It's still all these years since 1997. When I just started. Since 1990, when I started doing caricatures. Caricatures are just as popular today as they were back then, being hired for gigs and events and festivals and everything else because it's magical and it's an experience and it's hand drawn and you can do that too. So even in AI, you can still go out there and you can still paint a painting, you could still do a mural, you could still, and people, it's going to almost build the value of it to have an original hand drawn something. People are going to
Oh, yeah.
go, whoa. You hand drew that, and there's something special about that. Now, where am I against AI? If someone shows up in ISCA and all of a sudden is AI generating, takes a bunch of photos of you or other people's artwork and takes pictures of it and goes into their AI and says, create a caricature based on all these other caricature artists' work that I just took a picture of or their photos, and now I'm going to put it up on the wall and say that that's mine. Yeah, there's a problem with that.
But Steven, you got to agree that most everybody feels that way. I was just there was a news article I just read about where somebody put AI art up in Dragon Con and they got kicked out for
Oh,
it.
yeah, yeah.
This is going around all over the place.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of information, understanding that even the average person doesn't respect it. They'll use it once.
Yeah.
They want to experience it once.
Yeah.
It's not that big of a deal. They're like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
And then they move on. And then also the people that do want to integrate it for art, those aren't the people you want to work for.
Right.
They're going to be nightmares.
Yeah.
So you're literally saving yourself, and then you're finding more people getting graceful about what people are creating.
Yeah.
They see the little tag created by human.
Right.
That's worth something.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get that. So
Yeah.
when you focus more on how can I better myself? How can I help this conversation? How can I get away from this depressive thought?
Yeah.
Move forward. You can find some comfort in that.
Clear
and
your
that took me a
mind.
while to get there.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It is disruptive. Of course, all new technology is disruptive. And that's what absolutely it's going to kill certain art jobs without a doubt. We know that. But you can choose to either just be so every day be angry and pissed off and the world's going to end mentality and all this stuff. Or you can kind of empty your bucket in your head and leave it empty and allow room for creativity and new ideas and doing something new and positivity. Again, you can replace it. We can empty that trash can of all that garbage that you're just feeding. And that's what a lot of people are doing. They grab it, they see it, and it becomes just contention and just everything, the world, and say, hey, settle down. What do you want to do? What do you want to work on? Well, I want to do pet portraits, and I've always wanted to do pet portraits. Do pet portraits. Start doing it. Start showing up to pet shows. Start going to your local veterinarian. See if they need drawings done for their advertising. Whatever it is. But AI is gonna stop. Just go and explore and try and do that and stop making excuses. Well, and that's what a lot of people do, that this is good. Well, what if? And it's just like, just try it, man. You want to do a podcast and you have a YouTube channel? Try it. Stop talking about all the other people that are doing it. Stop talking about the people that have failed at doing it. Just do it. Just do it and see where these things take you, and again, and whatever business you want to try, whatever you think of, I mean, that's where my head's at. That's what I'm trying to preach all the time. Again, a lot
Yeah,
of
I
times with what
agree.
I do,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, it's that. Yeah,
you know what's really weird too is a lot of people make it harder than it actually is. And like our brain is preventing us. I mean, take for transitioning into animation from caricature or even going into caricature. You just lived it and then you just kind of went for it.
yeah,
The hardest part was just showing up,
yeah,
and then learning through those processes and ignoring those negative feelings and thoughts. I mean, that's probably the hardest part is
yeah.
ignoring the negative thought.
And isn't that everything though? It's like
Yeah.
we're always just kind of getting, doesn't matter what line of work you're trying to get into. I think that's what you gotta try to just allow yourself to do is just start letting just go of that. So what are things that one can do in their life? And it is all about, once again, change, and it's about forming new habits. So what are things that you're doing that might be stopping you from doing this? What can you pull back on? Or what can you do more of? And having that awakening or realization that, you know what, maybe I am spending too much time playing video games, or I'm binge watching TV programs or doing something else. So maybe I'm not getting enough clarity on my goals. And this is where AI can help you too. Like, I got a friend of mine, phenomenal art director, been an art director in the industry, done some big movies, done a lot of stuff. And always I'm just like, dude, you gotta make your own book. You gotta, yeah, but there's other artists who have done, no, there aren't. And it wasn't you. And it wasn't your perspective. I don't even know where to start. I said, how about using some AI? How about going to ChatGPT and putting in all the information about you? I am an art director and I want to create an outline for a thing based on this, and this. All your knowledge. Again, it's not creating this. Create me a chapter outline of this sort of format of what it looked like. Boom. Now you got a starting point. Are the things you're going to evolve and change? Yeah, but there's no excuses for anything anymore. You want to know
Mhm.
how pigeons go from one place with a message to another place. I always wondered that, like, what the, how do a pigeon know to go from here to that on a battlefield? I'm just like, I'm gonna Google AI, Google it, boom, we got the answer. Like that, we can find an answer to everything that we want these days. Anything you want, you don't have to question anything anymore. And there's so much knowledge out there, there's so many writings, there's so many books, there's AI now on that front. There's just like, man, it's all at your plate. It's given to you. You just got to like decide, am I going to take it? Or am I going to, it's like choose your own
Correct.
adventure. If you ever remember those books, you get to a certain point and you got to pick choose your own adventure. Like, oh, by chapter, you decide you want to go through this store, this store. If you want to go through this store, move to page 248. If you want to go through this store, go to page 197. So you got to choose your own adventure. And that's what our life is. We get to choose, but a lot of people want to put all these barriers and a lot of blame. People don't discuss things anymore. People don't have conversation anymore. And there's a lot of blame and everything else going on. And all these, you can have 50 million reasons and you can say, oh man, my upbringing was horrible and my mom did this and my dad did that. Man, how long are you going to keep this record going on for, my friends? Until you decide, hey, it's time to put on a new record. Let me put
Yeah.
on a new flipping record and see where that takes me. Let me
Yeah.
start a new video game. I finished all the levels on this one. Let me try something new. It's all there for us.
Yeah. And reverting back to we have all the answers at our hands, then we understand that experiencing those answers are more important than just getting the answers. I
Yeah.
mean, we know, I honestly feel like most of the people know how they got to do certain
Yeah.
things. And if they don't, they talk to people or look it up online.
Excellent.
That's the answer. Some
Yeah.
people don't want to hear that answer.
No, yeah.
But living through how to get there, I think that's more important and valuable than just, hey, do this. Hey,
Right.
put eggs and butter and flour and stir it up and make a cookie.
Right.
And then when you actually do it, you're like, this is the experience here. I'm actually doing it. Also, confidence,
Yeah.
going full circle back, confidence is what motivates you in order to do those things. Because if you feel unconfident, you're not going to feel like you can crack an egg open and put butter on some flour. You're going to be like, I'm going to
Absolutely.
mess it all up. This is going to be a disaster, blah, 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 blah. You just got to be like, I got to trust myself. I got to just go for it. My dad taught me, because he does heating and air conditioning.
Okay.
He said the hardest part of learning heating and air conditioning, plumbing, electricity, all of that is just going for it, just trying it.
Yeah.
You might mess up, you might burn down a house.
Yeah.
If you're willing to accept that, go for it, and
Yeah.
then you just be careful, you just play it safe, learn, and you're there. It,
Yeah, I heard a great thing one time, and it really makes sense to me. And they said that, how you become competent in something is through confidence. So you have to have confidence first in order to be competent, right? So whatever it is, whether you're playing tennis, whether you're a musician, whether you're an artist, if you build up that confidence within yourself that, hey, I can do this, then you can become even more competent and become that better artist because you have the confidence, right? So a lot of artists won't grow in many ways because they honestly within themselves don't have the confidence, right?
mhm.
So that's something we always got to strive for, is try to strive for that confidence. Stop beating up on yourself. Stop comparing yourself. Stop telling yourself that, that person's so much better than you and you'll never be like them, or you can never attain what they're doing. And once you realize everyone's on a different journey and you don't have to be like someone else. And oftentimes my mom's Irish, and she's just, there's an Irish sort of like saying, I don't know the full gist of it, like, but they said if you had a circle basically of all these people and they were all had their own suitcases of their problems, everyone's got their thing, and you threw it in the center, and you can grab someone else's problem, someone else's suitcase, you're going to just want to end up grabbing your own back, because that's the reality. We
Yeah,
think we want what other people have, but we don't know what those people, it's all surface. And
correct.
even more so now on social media, with people posting on their holidays and their vacation and this and where they're eating and all this. Oh man, look at them, they must have the best life ever, and not realizing that their dad's got dementia and they're taking care of them every day, or this is going on and that's going on, and their families in disarray, or they just, there's so many things, it's all this facade, it's fake. So this is why, be yourself because everyone else is already taken sort of concept, is just do what you're going to do. Again, is it going to work out right away? Is it going to go perfect? Is it going to, do you have to know all the answers? You don't. You don't need to know, or you don't have to have the whole thing figured out before you start. And like to your point of what your dad said, it's the same thing. You just got to start and then see
Mhm.
what happens and what something evolves into. And one of the biggest lessons my dad gave me in my life was, I was 18 years old and trying to get into the shopping malls doing caricatures during Christmas time. And I was so nervous and so scared about having to meet these people, the office managers in their suits and everything. And I was just moping around the house. And my dad came over and he just saw me. So what are you doing? What are you sitting on there on the couch moping? Well, Dad, I gotta have a meeting with these guys and I gotta show up. And so what? He said, what do you fear? What is the fear? What is going on? And he said, what do you fear? And I said, well, at the time, I'm like, just like, well, I don't know. It's more about death. Well, I don't want to get stabbed because I think being stabbed would really suck. And I said, and I don't want to drown. I think drowning would be the worst death ever. He goes, son, when you go into that meeting today, are they going to stab you? No. Are they going to drown you? No. Right. The worst thing anyone's ever going to say to you is no.
Mhm.
Ah. And that stuck with me my whole life. And that gave me the balls to do it. When I called up SeaWorld, when I got in touch with the guy from
Yeah.
Warner Brothers, everything was always the worst they're going to do is say no. And now we know that term is like called ghosting too. You're going to get ghosted. Someone's going to say no. But that's honestly the worst thing that's going to happen. So why not just go for it? Why not just do it? Yeah,
Yeah. And sometimes you're going to hear 500 no's before you get a yes. And
absolutely.
that's just from different people.
Yeah,
And then once that yes is there, you're going to feel rewarded. It's
yeah.
going to motivate you and put a fire under you. I get it. When you get heard no, I mean, look at Caricature. You're standing out
Oh,
on a
God.
dead day
Oh, yeah.
and you're like, hey, you want to get a drawing? Hey, you want
No.
to get a drawing? Hey, you want to get a drawing?
Yeah,
No, no,
yeah,
no,
yeah,
no, no.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
I think that also gives you some persistence
yeah.
when doing live caricature. You get to You get to experience the no,
Yeah.
respect the no, and
Yeah.
it's not going to kill you.
No, rejection is not such a bad word. Failure is not such a bad word. It just means that you tried something. And, again, there's going to be a certain point where, like Einstein said, doing the same thing over, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. So, yeah, you're going to be insane if you keep thinking that if I just keep doing the exact same tactic every single time and it keeps getting a no, well, at a certain point you got to realize I got to change something, I got to do something
Mm-hmm.
different. And that's where that experience of doing something over and over, keep getting the failures, keep getting the rejection, and eventually you keep going, dang it, I got to re-strategize, I got to do just something different. And by me doing that, eventually there'll be that yes, and it'll work out, and then you move on to the next puzzle. That's what I feel too. I feel like life is just a bunch of series of puzzles, and it can be to where we can envision, go, hey, I want to make a puzzle of a bicycle in France, in front of you, wherever. That's the image. What's the image that you want to create? And sometimes that puzzle can be made of 100 pieces, and sometimes it could be made of 5,000 pieces. Right. And you just don't know until you kind of, sometimes when you're starting how much work that might be involved, but then you start it and then you start to build it, and you go and you're moving those puzzle pieces around, and you keep trying, and you move it, and it's the wrong piece, and you go back again, you keep trying, but you keep working it. Why? Because you have a vision. You know that you want to finish this puzzle, you want to see the picture, and then you do, and then you finish the whole puzzle, and it's finished. And what do you do when you finish the puzzle? You tear it all down, you put it back in the box, and you start a brand new puzzle. And you
Yeah.
start a brand new image, the next step in your life. Now, this is my next journey, my next puzzle. And I think if you have that sort of outlook, again, instead of just too difficult, this puzzle, there'll be people that do that, right? They'll lift it up and throw it all over the room. This puzzle, it's too difficult, and they'll give up. I had a friend like that in high school. In video games, this, get up and storm out. You can never finish a game with this freaking guy, Monopoly or anything. He'd storm out. Yeah, I don't even know. I can't even find him on Facebook or anything. I don't know what happened to this guy. But it's just like, that's the mentality. If you have that, nothing's happening for you.
Yeah. When you're teaching, I think encouraging is really important.
Yeah.
Especially in order to gain confidence. We're
Yeah.
going on this whole confidence train. I think you and me can say that we're pretty confident people. I think you're more confident than me, though, but that's okay. But encouragement,
Yeah.
I think that's a big
Huge.
lesson for being a teacher.
Yeah.
How do you? This is something that I'm trying to figure out. How do you know when to give encouragement and then how to give constructive criticism?
I think it's really honestly just one and the same, because it's
Really?
constructive, as long as
That's
it's not
true.
just criticism, right? So, and
Yeah.
I've always believed in praise and encouragement. That's part of my
Mhm.
mentality for teaching is praise. I want to offer praise and encouragement, but doesn't mean I'm going to tell you that's awesome, you're so good. So that encouragement and that criticism, is, as I'm critiquing it, I'm going through their work, I'm going, hey, you know what? They're doing a figure drawing, they're doing a character, said, this is looking good. I love the shapes you're working with. I like the direction you're going with the character. But what I would do in order to push that even more is this, and now show them, so you can't just tell someone, just make it better.
Yeah,
What the
of
does
course.
that mean? Just,
Yeah.
or push it. What the does that mean? It's just like, if you're not going to show them. So that's the thing, is almost like you have to do, like what I do in my teaching method is really a form of discussion, then demonstration, and then it's up to them to draw. So discussion, demonstration, draw. And through that discussion, I'll show them what I'm talking about, and then they do it. But now I'm going over their work, and now I can tell them, okay, remember when I talked about sort of using the line of action a little bit more? So that's where it comes in. That's where the encouragement comes in, instead of just like, this is, this is horrible. You're never going to become an artist. You're never going to be right. That sort of stuff would be the worst thing you could ever do. But that's how I bring it into my teaching. Again, I want to build up their confidence, because once again, I know a lot of artists very sensitive, and wouldn't
Hmm.
be able to handle that. Yeah, and a lot of artists just don't in general. Like one of my biggest pet peeves is when I'm at conventions and people show me their portfolio and they ask for my opinion. So what do you think? Can I have you look through my portfolio? Give me. I look through their portfolio, giving them my opinion, and they're just sitting there going, and then they're not making eye contact sometimes, and they're just like, yeah, and then at the end they go, so what do you think I could do to maybe make my drawings better? I'm just like,
Yeah.
are you kidding me? And they'll go to 5 different people hearing the exact same
Just the same
thing.
theme.
Same thing. Just they just because they just like I just need them to tell me I'm doing awesome and doing great. And it's just like if you're that mentality, you're never gonna get better. You got to be that artist that kind of just like hears it, listens to it, and goes, "You're right, man. I do suck at drawing that," and be okay to say you suck at doing stuff. Again, it's just the ego. That's another thing we talk about. The artist that can be very lacking self-confidence, anxiety, depression. But then also you got the ego artist, the
Hmm.
artist that thinks they're the cat's meow and they think they're so great and amazing. And they got this air of just like, just whatever it is about them, which that's to me, that's a negative, on that front. It's just like, that stuff drives me nuts. It's sickening to me to watch, when I see artists like that, because I know that they're very insecure. And I
Hmm.
know that there's a lot of deeper stuff going on when they're that sort of person and they're gloating like that, or they just kind of need that, or they just need the praise. They need it. I need you to tell me how good I am. I need you. They got this thing about them. There's something wrong there, and I see through those people and go, oh, I know who you are. Don't worry. You'll
Yeah.
be fine.
I actually struggle with that, if I'm being honest. I need the validation sometimes. And I found out that once I started trying not to search for that so much,
Yeah.
and it's coming from a place of being scared and just trying to be accepted. That's
Right.
all it's
Yeah,
coming
sure.
from.
Yeah.
But I realized once that's where it's coming from, I quit. If I need the validation, I get it organically
Right.
only. I
Yeah.
don't ask for it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's a bad thing, and I guess this is why I'm trying to bring it up, is I don't give praise and validation because sometimes that can deter you or cripple you. And that's what happens for me. But I get it. You're saying everybody's different. Everybody has their own, issues. But for me, I would rather have somebody give me constructive criticism, never praise me, and then I do something, and then they just, I'm proud of you. Like
Totally.
that's what I need. And
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know if I'm translating that.
No, you are.
Um,
No, that's beautiful. Again, you're not coming in just like that. You need this, and you're not willing to hear the other side. You're coming in, and like you mentioned, you want it organically, and you want someone to. You don't need to force it in front of their face and try to convince them that you're so great. You might show them your artwork, and if they say to you once they see your artwork, hey, AJ, that's freaking awesome, dude. I love that. That feels good.
yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that at all. It's just, again, there's just those artists that you meet. And sometimes in a weird way, a lot of comic book artists, there's some of these big name comic book artists that are like that because they work by themselves. They've kind of been in this thing their whole life. They're not in the collaborative realm. And I've seen just and heard some of them how, sometimes they say, don't meet your heroes, right?
Hmm.
Because sometimes you could be very disappointed and
Yeah.
they got their thing where they'd be like, well, that guy's a and attitude. And, you come across those people who are just, I don't know, you just feel it, it's a feeling, you know it, when you
I don't
see
want to
it,
be that. I
yeah,
just
yeah,
want I don't want to be a jerk or
no,
standoffish,
yeah,
but I also do know that there's just some people that just need an encouraging word,
yeah,
So
yeah,
I guess when I'm teaching, I'm trying, because I teach my caricature artists, I'm trying to see what their actual lesson they need, and
right.
sometimes they need that encouraging word. I
They
pull
do.
them to the side. I tell them I believe in them. You can do this.
That's the
If
best thing
anybody
you
can
can
do it,
do.
you can do it. But then there's also, like you're saying, there's the people that are just looking for validation, like me, and I'm not going to give it to them
Right.
until they actually
Prove
feel
it.
like they
Yeah.
deserve it.
Yeah.
And
Show it to me. I'm not going to tell, because it's not going to help them. If
no,
you're looking at the artist's work and they just need that validation, okay, no, this is awesome, dude. You're doing great, but you're just saying it and it's empty. They're never going to improve, you know. But yeah, of course, yeah, there's a lot of artists that they just need to hear that and see it, and it's just like, you know, again, I think, yeah, again, it's all, we all have it. We all got ego, you know,
yeah,
within us, you know, of some sort. None of us are free of that. There's always going to be bits and pieces of that. It's just, I think, if you have an awareness, it's all about having awareness of your ego, just to be able to sort of like tone it down and know who you're in the presence of and know where you are. And there's a time to be, you know, humble, and there might be that time just to be a little bit, stronger and say things like, I know when I teach, one of my biggest pet peeves are people who aren't listening if they're on their phone while I'm teaching them. You know,
hmm
it's just like, I'm going to call that out and tell you, listen, if you're in a meeting with a director at a studio and you pull out your phone while they're giving you the brief, you're fired and you will not be
hmm
working at that studio again. You know, try pulling that, or these other places. Or I tell people when I've been teaching online during the pandemic, especially, people with blacked out screens, and not being on camera and stuff. And I tell them, I call them out and I say, listen, by doing this, you're not revealing yourself. Number one, you're not being fully present. And I don't know. And I feel like I want to give more of my attention to the people who have their camera on, because
hmm
I see them, and then I get people coming up to me different times and going, "Hey, I was in your classroom. Remember me? I was in that thing." I say, "No, I don't remember. I don't remember
I
names. I'm,
remember a
I'm
black
horrible at
screen.
names, but I'll remember your face." Most
Yeah.
likely, it's like, yeah, you had a blacked out screen. I don't know who you are. I don't remember you. So it's part of a networking tool. So always be present. Do whatever you can just to show up. And when you go to conventions, don't just stand there in front of artists you admire. You don't have to sit there in front of an artist and go, "Man, I love you there. Your artwork's so awesome. You're just so great." Go there with some questions and be like, "Hey, I'm a huge fan of your work. I really appreciate what you do. It really inspired me. And I'm trying to get through stuff myself, and I'm trying to figure stuff out. How did you blah, blah, blah?" Again, and I think just be inquisitive, ask people questions, and don't be that guy that's just like, yeah, whatever, and ignore people, or just again feel that you're so much better than people, right? So those are the two different
Could you
things.
also admit that you're going to be proud no matter what, just because somebody's picking up their pencil and they're drawing every day?
That I'll be proud because someone's.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy if someone's putting in the. I'm all about effort. If you're
hmm
putting in the effort, I like that. And when I go to SCAD and I'm grading, I'm looking at that. I'm going to be like, are you sitting and drawing and filling up that sketchbook? And I'm going to make it part of a thing that you got to do a page a day, or you got to fill up that sketchbook. That's going to be part of your grade. And if I see the effort, again, yeah, if your stuff's not there, it doesn't have to be. But I see that you didn't just, the thing is about artists, and I was guilty of this too, which is, I call it like the high school mentality of settling. I would always just settle on my first design. I do my first
hmm
drawing and I settled. And I'm just like, and then I'd beat it to death and keep fixing just that one drawing. And I realized the importance of do not settle and explore that different idea. How many different ways can you come up with that person's face? How many
hmm
different ways can you come up with that situation, that body, that storytelling moment, whatever it may be? Just explore, do 4, 5, 6 different versions, 7 versions. But if you just come to me and with one drawing, I'm going to be like, listen, do not sell. You gotta keep drawing. So I'm going to be proud, absolutely, of the ones that, and that's what my part of my teaching is like. I tell people that I'm teaching right now, I tell them, I pretty much just, but one of my main expectation of you is I want to see, oftentimes, I want to see quality over quantity though too sometimes, right? I just don't want to see a bunch 50 billion rough sketches that you've done nothing. You're just like, you've never made a
You're not
decision
learning.
on
Yeah.
anything. So I want to see that, at least give me something where I want to see a variety, but don't just feel obligated like, oh, Steven's going to want to see 30 designs. No, I want to see maybe 5 designs, 6 designs, but at least I can see your line. I can see your thought process. I can see you made that decision aware of closing off your line or avoiding that tangent or playing with that overlap or that foreshortening or whatever it is you're doing, that it's making sense. Otherwise, if it's just a scribble, don't just give me scribbles, they put some thought into this. And so
Yeah.
those are the things that I want to encourage. Yeah.
So out of that, what do you feel like another motivator for you from your students is?
Another motivator.
Yeah, something that just motivates you that they do.
Well, I think that the fact that one of the biggest ones is that if I can just see that they're giving me a little bit more. I can see that they're just simply not settling. I can see
Yeah,
that
the effort.
the effort. It all comes down to the effort. Show me
Well,
that you're at least trying. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm asking like what motivates you from a student.
Yeah.
So like for me, for example, I've taught 20 caricature artists doing this so far.
Okay.
And usually it's more personable because it's not a big class.
Yeah.
But there's lessons that they teach me sometimes or ask me questions or there's been times where they challenge me on what I'm actually saying, and I think that's what I appreciate the most is sometimes when you're trying to teach your mouth just
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
my mouth just kind of blah 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 blah
Sure.
blah
Yeah.
blah,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I'm not thinking through kind of
Yeah.
what I'm trying to translate. And I guess when somebody challenges me and be like, well, that didn't make sense, could you get over that? I do look like I'm getting frustrated because I'm like, okay,
Right. Right.
how
How
do
do I
I
explain this?
translate
Yeah.
this?
Yeah.
But that's one thing that motivates me a little bit more is sometimes I'm talking and I'm not really getting out what I need to say verbally.
Right.
Does that make
Right.
sense?
Yo. Yeah. Absolutely. Um, for me, I think what students have done for me is just made me slow down a lot and break down things even simpler. So the gift that students gave me was the ability to take a lesson or something I'm showing them and for me to have to break it down even more simple where I wouldn't have thought about that. And that actually became the catalyst for my book, which is now in 4 languages, called The Silver Way, where I've sold just thousands of copies. It's in all the major art schools around the world and was based on all my lessons that I was giving to them that I was having to break down and really think things through, where oftentimes I'd be just like, but if you just do that and you create that sort of like overlap or cheat it. Well, what do you mean cheat? What does that mean? What do you mean cheat it? Or what do you mean overlap? What do you mean, so there'd be certain things where you just go, oh, yeah, let me break this down even more. So let's just say a cheat is an animation or drawing is maybe, your hand arm can't go all the way back behind your head right here, just going like, just like right up through there. So, but for the action or the pose, you cheat it. So you actually have an arm that's kind of coming all the way up, and it still kind of works, but you're cheating it. It doesn't gravity and everything else and placement doesn't work, but you're cheating. Oh, you cheated that foot. That foot can't really bend in that direction, but for the purpose of the pose, you can do it and get away with it, So those are the certain things where people go, again, like where I had to get deeper on what some of the terms that I was throwing out even meant. And that's what students have created for me, was giving me that opportunity to really break things down. So again, I've been teaching for so many years now that I often don't get stuck. It's very rare that I'll get stuck on something that from what I'm teaching where I feel like, oh shit, how am I gonna explain this when I feel like I've covered every single question and almost answered every single question that there is, because I've taught thousands of students, over the years. So it's just repetition. Yeah.
Yeah. So the more that you do it, you're going to find more answers on doing that.
Builds up the confidence and the competence, It's
There you
like,
go. That's a good theme.
Yeah.
Well, Steven, I appreciate you doing this with me, man. It was actually really nice. I got to connect with you on a deeper level. So that's kind of what my goal was for sure.
Right
Is
on.
there anything you want to plug with this podcast?
No, I mean, you guys can follow me. I'm on Instagram at Steven with a PH, Steven Silver 7, because someone else took my name. There's other Steven Silvers out there. No. And then I just have my online art school, which is the Silver Drawn Academy, which is a bunch of talking about attention span and everything. All the videos are less than 5 minutes long. And I got over 400 video lessons on there that you can watch, from caricature to character design to gesture drawing to you name it on there. And you can do it at your own pace, and it's online. And you can just, learn if you feel like learning.
What about your book?
Yeah, and I got my book, which is called The Silver Way, which you can either order from my online store at silvertoons.com if you want it signed, or you can order it off Amazon. It won't be signed, but you can get it there, and that's called The Silver Way. And that was basically, I like to say it's 53 years of knowledge and 247 pages. So I've like kind of taken from my teachings and everything that I did, breaking things down, and put it all into this big book, which is now, in 4 different languages, and is actually used for curriculum in a lot of schools. Even the school that I'm going to in Savannah at SCAD, they use it. The teachers make it part of their required learning tool, which is really cool. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, buddy, I appreciate you doing this with me.
Thank you.
Thanks again. And,
my pleasure. Thanks for having me. Thank you.